And then we took off the sounds from the thirds, right?
No, we haven't done that.
Oh, okay.
Didn't have time. All right. When it says live, it means live. So we are we are now up and running. And guess what, folks? I got another camera angle. Can you believe it? It's right there. So now I get a wide shot. You want to switch to that real quick?
Okay.
We're showing off a little bit. We got another camera angle. In addition to,
I have a ton of static. I don't know.
you have a ton of static. Really? All right.
Oh, it's okay now.
No, it's because it's set for Beth. It's way too much volume. That's what we got to do. Hold on. Hang on a minute, everybody. Okay. Now you can tweak those and get them back up to what's comfortable, but that'll fix that. All right. One way or another, we're getting it done here. This is David Wilcock, and we are in part 4 of what has now become an enormously popular YouTube series. The third one has almost hit 900,000 views in like 2 days or 3 days or something. It's unbelievable. So thank you for your support and your participation in making this possible. Thank you for tolerating a couple minutes of marketing speak throughout what is a very large body of content. We do have a class that we are going to be launching called The Great Awakening. However, I am not going to whip the rug out from under you either. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. We took the proceeds from last year's event, and part of it went to building this new live stream system. And given what I wrote in my book, D-Class, which came out around June last year, I didn't know if we were going to get taken down if I started to do this. And investing this much into equipment and getting everything right, it's very important that you, go into this with the right attitude and with the right preparation. And the information that I have is contentious, but it's also true. And so I ask for you to simply think for yourself, make up your own mind, don't fall prey to pandemic fear porn. My wife actually just today was speaking with a leading PhD female immunologist who has been blowing the whistle on a variety of things, and we'll have more on that in the next episode. There's only so much I can do to get ready and to prepare fast enough. But one of the things that this woman said is that anyone who has gotten the COVID virus and has gotten over it, they can go back to work, they can be part of society. They're not going to give it to anybody else, and they're not going to get it from anybody else. Once you kick this thing in the butt, you have immunity. And therefore, we already could be testing people and turning society back on, because anybody who's gotten this thing can go right back to work. We do not need social distancing if you've already had it. That's one of the things the media is trying to really be dodgy about, and saying, oh, well, maybe this thing can hide, and maybe this thing can like come back on after it's gone. That is simply not true. She has debunked all of that, and she has also said that in some cases these flu vaccines and even things like chemotherapy treatments actually have live viruses in them. So this is something that we're all going to have to deal with on a collective level. The fact that this whole situation is a lot darker than we want to look at in some cases. It's bad. But again, the badness is only a function of evil people on the planet, the same people who killed JFK, the same people who secretly plotted 9/11 because it was way too perfect. It's not a bunch of Arabs with box cutters. You got to get hip to the truth. And the truth is not easy to find. However, it's much easier to find the truth now than it's ever been. We're in an unprecedented renaissance of truth-telling information coming out to the public. And that's where you come in. I really want you to understand how empowered you are to be able to rock the truth, get it out there. I'm giving you tools that you can turn around and use to build your own following, follow up with your own leads of research to take this thing to the next level. That's what I want. I want you to be fully empowered and informed with the truth. We are in an unprecedented situation where everybody's got to stay home, and there's a lot of fear in the world. There's a lot of panic in the world right now. And you have to understand, if you're not familiar with my work, I have been primarily an ancient civilizations and UFO researcher. I've been on over 100 episodes of Ancient Aliens, which is, for the most part, been the #1 show on History Channel, the #1 most viewed program on all of television in the country of India, in Bali, and in most of the countries in South America. They literally watch that television show more than any other. So that is common for me to get spotted out there. Oh, you're the guy on Ancient Aliens. Okay, that happens all the time. However, apart from the work that I've done on Ancient Aliens, which in and of itself is a lot of material, I've done a lot of work into what we could call the deep state, the Fourth Reich, if you really want to get down to it, the Cabal, the Illuminati, the deep state. These folks are not your friends. They are nasty, nasty people, and we do not appreciate them trying to destroy the planet and whip out the rug from under us on a collective level. This is clearly a programmed and manipulated attack. This is not random. We could debate as to whether this thing was manufactured or not. It definitely looks like it was. And if you have been following the previous broadcasts, I'm not going to go through anything too much in detail that we did before. I have a lot more slides for you, a lot more new information to go through. But I do want to point this out. We have strong evidence that a person who was working for Charles Lieber, the Harvard University chemist, who also was like the head of the department and a very prominent person, that there was a student of his, Zhao Songzheng, who was caught trying to smuggle in 21 vials to Wuhan on December the 9th. And he lied about what he had, and it's now a DOJ official report that came out on, I believe, January 28th. And it's all tied in with Wuhan, and it's tied in with smuggling biological material, which they claim is cancer cells, but then, as I showed you in the last broadcast, it was something that his friend was working on. Well, you're going to see a new article that I'm going to show you today that is going to absolutely blow your mind, that very strongly suggests that this was, in fact, coronavirus that was in those 21 vials, this brownish liquid that they talk about. Well, what we got in our briefings, and in case you don't know this, I have been receiving briefings for a very long time. And these briefings come from extremely high-level sources. I'm not bragging about this, but it is a fact that the UFO subject is a much, much bigger deal on the inside than most people could ever imagine, because Roswell really happened. That was 75 years ago, and that's when we in the United States first got our hands on an operable, interstellar, warp drive capable anti-gravity machine that also had time travel capability. If you remember what I was talking about, one of the things that was inside the Roswell crash was something they've called the cube. It's this device that you can hold in your hands like this. It opens up like the flowers of a petal, the petals of a flower. Yes, that's a spoonerism, right? It opens up like the petals of a flower, and then you can think about a place in time and space, and you will see it appear in this three-dimensional hologram, and then that's how they used the navigation systems of the ship. Once you decide you want to go there, whatever the cube shows you, you just think that you want to go there. And then the chair itself actually creates a wormhole that takes you to that destination. So unfortunately, my insider Daniel has died. He died of cancer. This was last month. In the hubbub of all the other stuff that was going on, I didn't even make a separate announcement of that. We were hoping that we were going to get a deathbed confessional video from him, but he got so sick so fast that he wasn't able to do that. We did interview him where he was on the phone, and I was interviewing him on camera in Colorado. We do have that. But unfortunately, we lost the ability to get his full testimony. However, Now is a good time to bring it up again. Daniel's testimony was that he had worked for Brookhaven National Laboratories in Montauk Point, Long Island, at the Montauk military base, and that he actually was involved in the so-called Montauk Project from 1981 to 1983, during which time it was called Project Phoenix 3. Now, what is Phoenix 3? Phoenix 3 apparently was some division of the military-industrial complex that got a seat out of a UFO. And they set it up in a big room, and they hook it up with these gigantic power supplies. They needed a tremendous amount of electrical power at a very odd specific frequency to get this thing to run. Then what they found was that they could put trained meditators in the chair, and if those meditators had certain thoughts about certain places, once they were in a deep state that they called the quiet point, that was the term they used for it. Once the meditators reached the quiet point, they could think about a particular place, and then a portal would appear inside the room, and you could push people through it. And they did this originally with homeless people that most of them never came back. You push people through it, and they go to that new place, and eventually they figured out how to get people to go out and to come back. But in the ship, when you're in the seat, you think about where you want to go, and a portal opens up, and you can fly into it. But it was the cube that created the navigation on how to get there. So, when you understand how big of a subject the UFO cover-up is on the inside, it makes sense that if someone is out there doing this hard work and doing this research that into ufology and reaching millions of people, as I have been for many, many years now, 2 decades or more, you're going to get insiders. You're going to get a lot of LARPers, LARP meaning live action role play, fakers, right? There's tons and tons of LARPs, but there's actually some people who are real. The military-industrial complex, the dark military-industrial complex, has done a really great job of keeping this hidden from the people, keeping this away from our collective consciousness. They don't want us to know how advanced their secret space program really is. The number of ships they have, the capability that these ships have. The fact, according to one of my top insiders, Dr. Pete Peterson, Americans are already all over the galaxy. But then you have to understand that as cool as that is, and it is very cool, the fact that we already, in the 1950s is when it was starting, that we were already becoming a Jetsons, Star Wars, Star Trek type of society. And now we have bases all over the place on the moon, all over the place on Mars, other moons in our solar system, 13 other solar systems in our own local area, and then we have these various outposts throughout the galaxy. Where did they get all the people? In the 1950s, they did something called the brain drain, where they got 55 million employees picked from all over the world, the top of the crop, the most intelligent, wonderful scholars, and people who really, really proved that they had what it took to be great scientists. When they got out there, unlike the brochures that made it look like they were going to live in some futuristic paradise, they find out they're slaves, and the whole system was built to ensure there would never be another American Revolution. So, for example, I heard years ago, back in, I would say, 2009, about a guy in the secret space program who was working somewhere, and they have 2 different internets. There's internets that are local to each area of the space bases they work in. Those people typically cannot connect to the Earth's internet, but in this case, a guy apparently had gotten, I think it was a 4 gigabyte file that was going to be the definitive download of information on the secret space program, and he actually started uploading it to the internet. But these guys are so careful and they're so watchful that they actually stopped the upload in progress, and the man was killed. So this is real. And believe it or not, if you get into the intelligence community in certain agencies, pretty much most of the intelligence agencies, other than maybe Homeland Security and the FBI, okay, most of the other out of the 16, you get above the mid-level, you know that there's a UFO cover-up, and you know that we have exotic advanced technology that, we got static on the transmitter, so I'll keep my hands away from it. We know this. We know that this is what's going on. So anyway, I will do my part to try to inform you about how this all fits together, where you as a soul reside in this whole process. What does this mean for us collectively? What does this mean for everyone on the planet? Okay, this is a big, big deal. We are awakening into a galactic civilization. And I don't want you to think this is fake. The sheer persistence of the amount of information that has come out is overwhelming. And I've done a lot of articles about showing how the current administration in the US has been telegraphing this move. They had a statement they made in September of 2018 where they said that there are secret space programs and that Roswell was a real crash of a piloted extraterrestrial object. They did say that. And during that time, they had this Orion space capsule on the White House lawn, literally simulating the idea of the UFO landing on the White House lawn. Pete Peterson, who died in a very untimely fashion, as I've said in previous videos, is very suspicious. He was given a bad injection that just so happened to kill him at the nursing home he was staying at. They acknowledge it was an accident. They're not saying that it was done deliberately, but he did not die of a natural cause. He died of a weird bad injection, okay? Happened to be on the same day that our other insider, Woody, also was found face down dead after he had just signed off on the new financial system, which we're going to hear about very soon. Okay, so Pete Peterson would always talk about the idea that we have Americans all over the galaxy, that there are multiple outposts out there, and that it's all been kept very, very secret from us. This is nothing new. We've been building this stuff out for a long time. If you want to know why the world is so poor, why, I mean, think about this. Let's just go on to this one for a second. Think about how the average responsible adult saves a certain amount of money for a rainy day. You might lose your job, you might have trouble, you might be, you know, in a car crash. You might not be able to work for a while. You gotta, I mean, there are about 50% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, which is a function of this dismal economy. But ideally, as a responsible adult, you have some kind of a cash reserve. Now we're supposed to think that these too big to fail banks and these mega corporations simply went bankrupt after 3 weeks of no business. That they're that weak that they just crumbled overnight. And now they're supposed to be getting trillions of dollars of bailouts because they're too big to fail again, and it's just nonsense. So I would advocate, first and foremost, that we take a look at what is really going on in the world and we see what the motives might be. Because what I've been arguing is there is a group, an international group. If you go to Russia, it goes back 300 years that they've been working on this. If you go to the US, it goes back to at least the 1950s, okay? But what we have is a group that has been trying to get the deep state arrested. The Illuminati would be another name for the deep state, the New World Order, trying to get them arrested, trying to get them thrown in prison on a collective level. And these plans I became aware of starting, as I said in previous shows, with the work of Sherman Skolnick back in 2001. Before 9/11, he was already talking about this. And then it wasn't until 2007 or thereabouts that Benjamin Fulford explained that the BRICS organization, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, was formed ultimately for the same goal. Now it appears that the BRICS thing has expanded a lot more and that there is a secretive alliance with the US military and intelligence community, which was going to lead to a military coup over the US during the Obama administration. At the last minute, they decided to ask Donald Trump if he would run. Now, this is very important. The alliance did not and does not have very much money. They needed a candidate who could finance his own campaign, and they gave him a briefing over a 2-week period of time about how bad it really is. He was absolutely shocked. For the first week and a half, I believe, he didn't want to do it. And they talked him into it. So I understand, and I still get these emails, that you might never be able to appreciate anything positive about Donald Trump whatsoever. And the media's got your back on that, right? It's like 99%, if not almost 100% negative. There are whistleblowers that have come forward through James O'Keefe and Project Veritas from multiple entities like ABC and big media companies saying that they have been forbidden from talking about anything else but impeachment. They can't talk about anything else. They're not allowed to report on other news. That is censorship. And then you look at how there's this weird and highly violent fight to the death between the media and the President of the United States, and the media will never tell you about the fact that QAnon is this thing that's telling you that pedophiles are running the world, that they are actually satanic, that they practice human and animal sacrifice, blood drinking, that they are highly vicious people who really do want to see humanity's numbers brought down to 500 million people, which is what's on the Georgia Guidestones. Now, I had said before it was 250 million. I was wrong. It was 500 million, okay? But that was because I was doing it off the top of my head. I don't remember everything. I remember a lot of stuff, but not everything. So I don't want this to be another 3-hour extravaganza. We do have a lot of slides to get through because there's new material to update you. But if you have been following my work, then you'll know that I've been telling you guys for God knows how long, 10 years, 11 years, that you needed to have stored food and water in your house, and you were going to have to be prepared to hang out and not go outside and have food and water in your house for about 2 weeks to a month. We're in that time right now. The time that I've been telling you for 11 years that you needed to have that food and water, this is it. There's not going to be another one, okay? This is what's happening. The Alliance, as we've now heard from new briefings, I can tell you this today, the Alliance, which is the good guys, once again, had planned on doing this mass arrest later. They were not going to do it this fast. They had a tiered plan where they were going to come out with big data dumps, big releases of information first, and then it would gradually transition into the unsealing of indictments. However, rest assured that in light of this unprecedented attack, the release of a highly contagious virus, which almost certainly was bioengineered, based on the insider briefings that we've had, based on this very strange case that's already on the books from the Department of Justice, where you have a Chinese national smuggling 21 vials of something biological into Wuhan right on December the 9th, right before this thing got started, and he's lying to federal officials about what he had, okay? About the only thing that's different from what's in the DOJ report, which doesn't say what it was in those vials, and what we got in the briefing is that the vials had coronavirus, and the briefing told us the whole world is going to be told about this. The whole world is going to be told that this was an engineered virus by none other than the Gates Foundation, Bill Gates, who had, between him and Warren Buffett alone, they put $46 billion into this Gates Foundation, and I talked to you about an article from the UK Sunday Times going back to 2009 that's called Billionaire Club in Bid to Curb Overpopulation, where they actually said that they wanted to strike back at population as a murderously serious problem that threatens all life on Earth. So the only way we can save life on the planet is to kill all the life on the planet, or at least a lot of it, okay? This is really what they think. It's called eugenics, and it's very dangerous, it's very ugly, it's very disgusting. I don't support this at all, but I have had multiple insiders try to get me to agree with it, try to get me to go along with it. They've argued the case to me. They've tried to say the earth is like a dog that needs to shake off its flea problem. I've heard that one. I've heard all kinds of crazy stuff. I've had bribes to go along with this plan. I don't do it. I have never done it, and I'm not going to. So I would rather be able to look at myself in the mirror every day and know that I'm telling you the truth and know that I am not a fraud, despite what a certain very small percentage of our audience says. This is real. We are on the front lines. We are fighting for you. We've taken many hits. We've taken an enormous amount of public defamation, criticism, attack. We've had death threats. It's gotten very, very serious, but we're still fighting and we're still putting out the truth to the best of our ability. So that article in 2009 spelled out what they wanted to do, that they were going to focus on vaccines, and then the next year, Bill Gates puts in $10 billion, Warren Buffett puts in $31 billion. 10 years later, we get the $46 billion magic virus. And you can take $5 billion off that they might have spent on other things. Let's say it's a $41 billion virus, okay? That's a lot of money. And it's an unthinkable amount of money, actually. It's just so massive, it's hard to even put it into a framework that we can identify with our rational minds. But that's the kind of research that apparently went into this thing. And as I said in the previous briefings, it is highly contagious, but it is not highly lethal. And I'm going to show you more numbers today on that. We also talked yesterday, or the other day, of Michael Levitt, who is a Nobel Prize-winning chemist, one of the top immunologists, epidemiologists in the world. As I said, he's the Jimi Hendrix of epidemiologists. And he said, what the hell is going on? This whole thing is just a big media fear porn campaign. There's nothing really that bad about this. And now, the immunologist we were talking to today has said, anybody who's kicked COVID in the ass, which is already going to be a lot of people, as soon as it's out of their system, they can go back to work, they can talk to other people that are immune, they can do whatever they want to do, they're never going to give it to anybody, and they're never going to get it again, okay? That's just basic logic. So this is not going to keep us down very long. It does appear that the month of April will be shut down, but I don't think it's going to go a whole lot longer than that. Now, as I was telling you guys before, let's go back to this angle again. As I was telling you guys before, we have gotten some very, very exciting briefings, and we have a lot of questions about that regarding this topic of the 3 days of darkness. This is a huge, huge thing. I have heard about this before, but I didn't think I would ever be able to talk about it. The idea that the last stage of the mass arrest process, you remember I was always telling you that you were going to get presidential emergency broadcast system briefings if you're in America on your phone, okay? That's true. But what we didn't say is that during that time that you wouldn't be able to use the telephone except for emergency calls like 911, and that you wouldn't be able to use the internet except at a very slow speed. It's only going to be 3 days, and it does appear that during that time the alliance will be getting the arrests done that need to get done, which probably are not that many, because apparently most of the deep state has now surrendered. We have talked we did talk in every episode about Defender Europe 20, that there are actually 38,000 troops from 18 NATO countries, including the US, in Europe right now, a 25-year peak in terms of how big this thing is. The biggest military maneuver in Europe in 25 years with 3,000 pieces of equipment, which apparently means tanks and probably jets. So if there is resistance, I would imagine that there are going to be some bunker buster bombs that are used and things like this. We have a number of reports of earthquakes that are suspect, clusters of earthquakes. So when I do my next show, we're going to get into all that stuff. Again, I only have so much time to put these together, and we already have a lot of slides I haven't even started to go through yet. But the 3 days of darkness are very exciting. It's going to be scary for people because you're not going to be able to make phone calls, you're not going to be able to use the internet. And then everybody's saying, when the hell is it going to be? When the hell is it going to be? I don't know, okay? And in fact, I would say the briefings are not necessarily right either. We don't know if the plans that have been made are going to be carried through. If you recall from the previous show, one of the briefings that I believe was the one from Disclose.tv had said it could be Sunday or Monday. Well, that already happened, and nothing happened, of course. Another one of the briefings that I got, which was from a State Department source, had said that it was going to be before Good Friday, leading up to Good Friday. Well, that's very nearby, okay? Given the fact that we're going to have to social distance until the end of April, it is possible that they might not do it until later in the month of April. It's possible that it might not happen until May. Now, I also want to be very clear on something. I am taking a risk with my public persona, bringing this information out to you, not knowing whether the alliance is actually going to do this. I am not in any type of command role here. I get little tiny dribs and drabs of briefings, and that's about it. And they've dried up almost completely. So I'm like you now. I basically, for the most part, all I have is the QAnon stuff, which is clearly from the alliance. As I said before, there's been over 500 Q proofs where very obvious signposts were made to show that this is coming from the current U.S. presidential administration. But you will never, ever, ever hear the media talk about that because this thing is so threatening to them. And again, please, for God's sake, if you don't like Trump, don't throw the alliance out with Trump. Don't act like the whole alliance is some mind-controlled drone army of Trump. That is not true. This thing has been in place and actively planned and worked on since the 1950s. There are probably hundreds of thousands of soldiers and intelligence agents and many other people from all around the world, the international community, who are all working on this. But that is what the negative side is going to try to get you to think is, oh my God, the guy is such a jerk and we hate him and you can't ever trust this thing. This is just a fascist coup. Trump is going to take over everything. It's not true. Trump was he was asked to run by this alliance that is trying to get this job done. They made a deal, okay? They made a deal with him that he would use his own money to finance this campaign and that he would campaign on telling people real information. Does that mean that he's made some spectacular gaffes? Absolutely. Would I agree with the way he manages his public persona? It's not how I would do it, but I really do also want you to try to take into consideration the possibility, yeah, we're definitely going to get into the 5G. That's a big, big subject. I'm definitely going to talk about that. That's in the Q&A part. So to try to get into this Trump thing and unpack it, okay, this is very important. Yes, he can annoy the hell out of people. No, he is not a Satanist. No, he is not drinking the blood of little children. He's not sacrificing people. He's not doing satanic rituals. That's why they brought him in. Okay? Does he have an abrasive personality? Yes. Does he have, for some people, an annoying personality? Absolutely. But you have to keep in mind, what is this guy actually doing? I've talked with my wife about the difficulties that just the two of us have being public figures and how much opposition we've had and how many people literally dedicate their whole life to just writing hate about us online, even though we're never going to say who they are, except, you know, if you look into lawsuits that we file in the future, you're going to see that they're named in them, but, you know, we're not even going to publicize that. There's certain cases where we absolutely have to do this in order to keep our safety. So that's going to happen. Anyway, it's important to understand that what we've gone through, just the two of us, is horrific. It's nightmarish. People act as if we're not real humans, that we just have this limitless ability to take abuse. That's not true. Try to imagine Harry and Meghan. Try to imagine what it would be like to turn your back on the royal family and have the entire media try to pin you as these crazy, evil people for daring to step away from the monarchy, okay? That is a lot worse than what's happening to Elizabeth and me, and I fully acknowledge that. Harry and Meghan, congratulations. You guys did an amazing job getting out of there, and I really appreciate that. And you guys have helped to awaken people that there's something really wrong with what's going on, or else you wouldn't have left and taken all this abuse. Maybe they were getting away before this big thing's about to happen. That's entirely possible that they were tipped off and warned. Then you got to try to imagine, what would it actually be like to be this guy? Just forget about what you think you know about him or what you don't like about him. Try to imagine what it would be like to be the most hated person in human history, which is what has actually happened. The amount of scorn that the world has shown to Donald Trump is beyond anything that we've ever seen for anybody, including Hitler, okay? Because even with Hitler, you had state-friendly media in his own country that was supporting him. And throughout the other Axis countries like Italy and Japan, okay? You never had this kind of stuff happen before. And so to try to even wrap your head around what it would be like to have countless, hundreds of thousands of the most vicious attacks coming at you every day, and then you got to think about, okay, what type of personality structure could even handle that without breaking, without cracking? Because the problem with the deep state is that all the other presidents that have gone in, even if they thought they could make a difference, like Jimmy Carter, for example, or like Obama at the beginning of when he first got elected, okay, they find out real quick, no, you're going to do what we tell you to do. You don't have your own free will. We've had lots and lots of briefings on this. The first thing that happened to Obama was that after he won the election, and there was that private meeting with all the presidents, he had, and you can look at this online, it's available in the news reports about that first meeting with all the presidents. They will say in there that there was an approximately 20-minute meeting that he had in private with George Bush Sr. What you don't know, unless you've heard me talk to you about this before, is that in that private meeting, George Bush Sr. went frickin' crazy and turned demonic and started threatening Obama and actually got all, toothy and wild like this and used the N-word repeatedly and said, "Look, you effing N," and literally starts tearing him apart like that. If you ever do anything except for what we tell you to do, your whole family is going to be tortured, raped, and killed in front of your eyes. And then Obama staggered out of the room. There was a CIA guy that was in the telephone booth that he didn't see, and he collapsed down, and he was sitting on a sofa, and he put his head in his hands, and he said, it's black urban vernacular, he said, "My God, they made the N-word into a scapegoat." And that makes me very sad, because apparently, based on the stuff we get from Q, Obama took these death threats very seriously and did cooperate with several different things that these people were doing. And, the briefings are very sad in that sense. So you have to understand, you need somebody who can have death threats coming at him on a daily basis, the most serious, sinister death threats that if they catch you, they're going to torture you, they're going to rip you apart little by little, and he's still going to keep going. And he has the whole world against him, and he's still going to keep going. And yeah, does his personality show signs of ego and pride? Absolutely, okay? But it's really freaking hard to be a guy in that role. So I just want to try to get you to remember that there is a human being in there, okay? Because when I was speaking to Meganon, there was a lot of stuff about her private time that she spent hanging out with him one-on-one. And ironically, she said that he and I have similar personalities. But I'm not going to go publicly saying the kind of things that Trump has said. But you know what? If he can do this, okay, this is one of the things I really hope you can understand. If you're on that side where you just, I just can't stand it. I just hate the guy. Right? If you're on that side, wouldn't it be hilarious to find out once these 3 days of darkness go by, they turn everything back on, and now you get round-the-clock broadcasts telling you what was really going on. It's very unpleasant information. There's probably going to be things that I'm surprised by, that everybody is surprised by. But wouldn't it be hilarious, after all this crap and all of this hatred against this one guy, to find out that the whole thing was actually saving the planet? And that even though, if you want to look at it this way, which I don't, but you might, even though it is sloppy, it is messy, it's a joke, you think it's a joke, what I'm trying to tell you folks is that the most magnificent military combined maneuver in human history, the game changer, planet-saving, single 3-day military operation over and above all the stuff they've been doing before, is about to happen. Something with the degree of planning and logistics and sophistication and beauty and elegance that when this happens, the world will never be the same. And it's only cool for me to talk about this now because once it happens, we knew that. We all knew they were arresting the cabal. We all knew it was only a matter of time before these guys finally got arrested. We all knew that the good men and women in the world would stand up. Okay, but a lot of people are not saying that right now. They're really scared, they don't trust, and they are very, very nervous about this thing that's going on in the world right now. So, is this the end of the world? I'll cut into the slides now. Is this the end of the world? I say absolutely not. Is there a mass consciousness effect taking place right now? Absolutely yes. You have to understand the consciousness significance of having everyone staying home all at once all over the world. We have never had a leisure event, if you will, like this in world history before. And to me, that is amazing. Because, as I read to you last time, from the Law of One series, which is a spiritual text that is allegedly derived from extraterrestrial intelligence, okay? So one of the only ones that I think of as credible, the Edgar Cayce readings I would put in that category, the Seth books by Jane Roberts. There's a few others that I talk about in my upcoming new book, Awakening in the Dream. We are apparently going to release it on June the 2nd. I highly recommend that you pre-order that book. It's not very expensive. It will become more expensive when it comes out. And pre-ordering it will help us to ensure that we get good positioning on its day of release, so it'll get more attention. You are going to be amazed when you see what I put in this book, which I finished on January 21st, before all this crazy stuff started to happen. But I anticipated it in the book. I didn't know what it would be, but I thought it was imminent, and I said that in writing. In fact, we're going to have to prove that I wrote this book before all this took place, because nobody's going to want to believe me when they read it. But that is what happened. So the Law of One is allegedly extraterrestrial-derived source through telepathy. I lived with the people who did it in Louisville, Kentucky for 2 years. And it says in there that when people have the opportunity to rest and to have solitude at home, that they can make enormous spiritual progress that is nearly impossible to make if they're busy. Now think about the number of people in America and in Europe who are literally working 2 or 3 jobs to stay alive. They're working morning, noon, and night. They never get a break. They just have enough time to eat and sleep, and that's it. And their children are in a child care system. They don't even get to raise their own children because they're working so much. This is the sad state for many, many people, okay? Those people are now finally getting a break. They're getting checks from the government, and that's where this is going. So I'm really, really sorry about the static, folks. Apparently, every time I get my hands near this thing, we're getting static. Let me try to pull the antenna out from under my shirt. Maybe that will help a little bit. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Okay, let's try that. I don't like any technical problems. You know, I'm anal retentive, man. I'm just OCD, but we spent a lot of money getting this thing set up. We've got all these cameras are Blackmagic design, and we all have Sigma lenses on here if you're a geek and you know what that is. So we have a really, really great system. This is a Hollywood quality live video streaming system. All right, so what happens when everybody's staying at home at once all over the world? The answer is a lot of solitude and a lot of spiritual insight. And when enough people are having the same experience, interesting quantum effects start to take place, field effects, where consciousness starts to aggregate on itself, it starts to evolve, and as I've talked about in things such as, but not limited to, the 100th monkey effect, you have the ability for consciousness to upload new information into people's minds. One of the things that I love to talk about is the story of a particular Italian wall lizard called Podarcus sicula. And I did have some slides for this before. I don't have them in front of me right now, but let's talk about this. These lizards were living on a desert island in which they had no vegetation and they were eating insects. Insects, as it turns out, are very easy for their jaws to crunch down on and break the bodies of. It's like a swizzle stick, just, you know, and it's done. However, plant material is much harder to chew. It requires a bigger jaw and more jaw muscle power. So what you have is these five breeding pairs of Italian wall lizards that are on a desert-only island where all they eat is insects, and they were transplanted over to an island that only has a lot of vegetation, okay? So what happens when those lizards are brought over to the island with vegetation? Well, in only 5 generations, meaning they have kids and then those kids have kids and so on for 5 steps, okay? They had a radical evolution in the structure of their bodies, and they could trace it all back to this genetic lineage of the original 5 adult pairs, okay? They had much larger, noticeably larger jaws to be able to chew through plant material. The muscles on their jaws became sizably stronger. The physical size of their bodies got larger, and the weirdest thing was that they actually evolved new structures in their digestive tract. They actually developed these things called cecal valves, that's C-E-C-A-L, And the cecal valve stores fermented material. It creates fermentation, okay? It's like a little fermentation vat. And what happens is the vegetables have to come in and they have to be fermented in order to be digestible. That's pretty freaking cool because it shows that evolution can occur very quickly. Another great speaker in all this is Dr. Bruce Lipton. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, the thing I like the most about all of his different work is where he talks about a particular strain of bacteria, and it was called Caenorhabditis elegans, okay? And the spelling is Caenorhabditidis Caenorhabditis elegans. And Caenorhabditis elegans is a bacterium that doesn't eat lactose. If you put these little guys into a lactose-only environment where there is nothing to eat but lactose, 85% of them die, but 15%, somewhere around there, actually change their biological structure in one generation, in one lifetime. They actually start to be able to digest lactose. Their mouth literally changes shape. During one lifetime, their mouth evolves into a different shape that can get those lactose proteins eaten. So isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy that you have this little bacteria that in one generation, within its own lifetime, its body evolves? Now, I had the term Podarcus sicula just come into my head when I was cooking dinner the other night, out of nowhere, and then I realized, oh, thank you guys, because I do get these little downloads, little hits like this, right, sometimes. Thank you guys, meaning the higher forces, whoever is out there speaking to me, you know, and it does happen sometimes. I'm not crazy, believe me, we all have the ability. It's the still small voice. And I realized, wait a minute, why are you guys telling me about Podarcus sicula? Why are you asking me to think about the Italian lizard that's dropped into the vegetable island and then all of a sudden starts to eat vegetables just fine and develops whole new systems in its digestive tract? The answer is that this is what's happening to us right now. We are being put through stress, and stress causes evolution, genetic DNA code rewriting. So this further enhances what I was telling you last time in the previous episode regarding the idea of complex adaptive systems, which, if you remember, when they model these complex adaptive systems, which is a system of individual agents that have the ability to move around with a set number of rules. They can interact with each other and communicate with each other within a system that has a set number of rules. And you get these very beautiful fractal patterns that appear in the way they interact with each other. The fractals show up, the fractals kick in, and they start to behave as if they are a total group consciousness. So that in the case of, as I said, with the sand pile computer modeling, where they model every particle in a sand pile that's formed by something like an hourglass, they know where every particle is, they know how much stress it has on it, what direction it's going to go in, if it moves. They find out that there's a moment of peak instability where they can no longer predict the direction or the speed with which a particle will move, and then there's an avalanche. And after the avalanche, mathematically speaking, you get a new sand pile that's higher and more organized. One of the things I really love about this study is they found out you cannot predict how the system will restructure itself. You cannot orchestrate it. You can't try to steer it that way. It's unpredictable. It's going to happen in a chaotic, meaning order. Chaos is order in this new science, right? There's going to be a chaotic restructuring of the system, which is also causing DNA evolution. So one of the things that happens is, if they screw around with these pathogens and they release this into humanity, we will evolve to make it harder for these pathogens to work. So I want you to think about the movie Super Size Me. And this is that horrible, horrible idea that this guy had, but it was a great movie nonetheless, that he's only going to eat McDonald's for 30 days, and if they ask him if he wants to supersize it, he has to say yes. And you see him throwing up when he eats Big Macs. It's disgusting. His body starts to completely shut down. He's literally dying. His liver is falling off. His kidneys are falling off. His digestive system is falling off. But if you watch the movie towards the tail end of the 30 days, his system started adapting to these toxins and it started to recover. Not all the way. Now, please, I'm not saying go eat a bunch of McDonald's. And I'm not saying that eating McDonald's is going to make you more evolved. What I am saying is, if you can take Caenorhabditis elegans and drop that little guy into a lactose environment, and his mouth literally evolves to be able to eat lactose, and you take these lizards, the Podarcus sicula lizard, and you drop it onto a vegetative island, and then in 5 generations they've got a much bigger mouth and new systems in their digestive tract, we can get through this. We are a complex adaptive system. You can't predict the outcome. All we know is it's going to be a higher level of order. And in the sand particle modeling system, they also found out that a single agent could transform the entire system. That literally means one person in this current environment could radically transform the outcome. Now, I don't just want it to be one person. I want lots of us out there following through on what I was telling you for years, which, if you remember, I said, you're going to need to tell your family members that they have to get out of bed, they have to be happy, they have to cheer up, that this is not the end of the world. I told you that. Now it's happening. But look at what else we'd realize, right? The capitalist experiment has collapsed. This whole idea that you know, too big to fail banks can play around with financial leverage and can trade financial instruments that have no actual notional value, right? They're just instruments. They're just packaged pieces of money. And this whole system is so corrupt that it has now completely wiped out life on Earth. We didn't have a piggy bank. We didn't have a savings, right? These guys are trying to make you believe that in 3 weeks, when their money is cut off, that all of a sudden, oh my God, we're bankrupt, we're broke, and it's the end of the world. Well, where's your savings? Where's your rainy day fund? How come you guys aren't prepared for this, right? Like, shouldn't you have done some stress tests, and shouldn't you have evaluated the possibility that there could be a virus or a pandemic or any number of things? I don't know. Well, yeah, I mean, come on. Come on. All right, we got... Okay, yeah, we'll do it. We're going to keep going through slides. There's a lot to talk about. This is really big stuff, folks, and I want you to see this. This blew me away, and this should get you very excited. Going back to my story about COVID-19, suspected SARS virus and flu samples found in luggage. FBI report describes China's biosecurity risk. Now, before we dig into this, okay, I want to share with you what I think this is. It may actually be the deep state. Even though it's a limited hangout and it's giving you some real information, there's certain things that they definitely don't say in this article. They definitely don't say that these viruses are actually being manufactured. They imply that they are natural. But what do they talk about? They talk about multiple cases of virus smuggling. People bringing viruses around from place to place. Okay, this is a big deal because that's what we're thinking happened in Wuhan with Charles Lieber and his student Zhaosong Zheng, that he was smuggling in COVID-19. That's what the briefings told us, all right? This appears to anticipate that, so check it out. We'll read it now. In late November 2018, just over a year before the first coronavirus case was identified in Wuhan, China, U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents at Detroit Metro Airport stopped a Chinese biologist with 3 vials labeled antibodies in his luggage. That is crazy, okay? Why would he be doing that? The biologist told the agents that a colleague in China had asked him to deliver these vials to a researcher at a U.S. institute. So again, just look at all the words. Let's try to remember what we're seeing. November 2018, okay, Chinese guy smuggling these vials into the U.S., caught by Border Patrol, and it's again saying that he was delivering them to a U.S. institute. And then the customs agents examined the vials and came to an alarming conclusion. Well, you can see where this is going. Inspection of the writing on the vials and the stated recipient led inspection personnel to believe the materials contained within the vials may actually be viable Middle East respiratory syndrome and severe acute respiratory syndrome materials, meaning live viruses. of these things that target Asians the most, according to an unclassified FBI tactical intelligence report obtained by Yahoo News. The report, written by the Chemical and Biological Intelligence Unit of the FBI's Weapons of Mass Destruction Directorate, does not give the name of the Chinese scientist carrying the suspected SARS and MERS samples or the intended recipient in the U.S., but the FBI concluded that the incident and 2 other cases cited in the report were part of an alarming pattern. Now, what you're going to see right here is an actual copy of this tactical intelligence report, okay? And so you can see there it says Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation, November 11th, 2019. Now we're going to zoom in on it a little bit here. Tactical Intelligence Report, FBI Weapons of Mass Destruction Directorate, Foreign researchers' transport of biological samples into the United States via personal luggage almost certainly presents a biosecurity vulnerability. Wow. This is from the FBI. The Weapons of Mass Destruction Directorate assesses foreign scientific researchers who transport undeclared and undocumented biological materials into the United States in their luggage, right? And the WMDD makes this assessment with high confidence based on liaison reporting with direct access. In other words, these guys were interrogated and they confessed. The report, which came out more than 2 months before the WHO learned of a cluster of pneumonia cases in Wuhan that turned out to be COVID-19, so this was more than 2 months before COVID, it appears to be part of a larger FBI concern about China's involvement with scientific research in the U.S. While the report refers broadly to foreign researchers, all 3 cases cited involve Chinese nationals. In the case of the suspected SARS and MERS vials, the intelligence report cites another classified document that is marked FISA, meaning it contains information collected under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Now let's just stop right there for a second, okay? So this is really interesting because the FISA report is a big part of what QAnon and other alliance sources have been telling us that we're going to expect to hear from. The FISA report telling us about tampering with the U.S. election, messing up the U.S. election to try to destroy Trump's presidency. And the FISA report you probably heard about if you study the Q stuff at all. But it's pretty freaking weird that the FISA report stuff would be tied in with biosecurity issues of people smuggling viruses into and out of the U.S. Well, that implies that viruses have something to do with tampering with the election, something to do with tampering with the government. And look at what's happened, right? As a result of COVID, the whole 2020 election, now you're going to have to vote by mail. And now you're not going to be able to see the candidates debate each other, right? The debates are canceled and the rallies are canceled. And so all of the embarrassing things that could happen if you get Sleepy Uncle Joe and Donald Trump together in the same room, which I don't care if you like Trump or not, it's going to be hilarious if you watch that debate, right? They want to stop that. They can't let that happen. They shoved away all the other guys. They shoved away into the candidates you really liked, and now they're saying, no, you got to have Biden, right? So this is crazy. So the FISA report, really? Wow. Let's keep going. Another case cited in the report appeared to involve flu strains, and a third was suspected E. coli. Then they actually show you a quote from this paper, and I'm going to read you this part. The FBI WMDD assesses foreign scientific researchers who transport biological materials into the United States in personal carry-on or checked luggage almost certainly present U.S. biosecurity and biosafety risks. The WMDD makes this assessment with high confidence based on liaison reporting with direct access. We heard that. These materials typically are not declared, officially labeled, or properly packaged, although at least some of the materials are likely associated with legitimate U.S.-based research efforts. And then look at this, of all dates, on September 11th, 2019, isn't that ironic? A Chinese national initially made no positive declarations, but was later found to have 8 vials of a clear liquid in their checked luggage at Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County Airport. The vials had no supporting documentation. The Chinese national stated the material was DNA derived from a low pathogenicity strain of H9N2. However, some of the vials had WSN handwritten on top, and through open source research, CBP determined WSN is an acronym associated with the H1N1 avian influenza, collected in 1933. And we had a big problem with that, the bird flu. The material was confiscated and the individual was allowed to travel to Dallas, Texas, where they were traveling to work with a researcher associated with an identified U.S. research institution. Wait a minute, folks. You smell that? An identified U.S. research institution, but they notably do not say what it is. Why? Because there's a pending criminal investigation. What's it going to tie back to? Almost certainly it's going to tie back to the Gates Foundation, virus smuggling, and they're doing this because they intend to release this stuff. This is not just being done for fun, and if it was totally legit, then why don't they declare it in customs? Why do they smuggle it in, right? And this is a clear case of H1N1, but there's more. So now in this picture, you can actually see the photographs of what was seized. And if you look closely, you can see, sure enough, there it is, WSN on the left there. They just smuggled it right in like that. Okay. Then, on November 28th, 2018, CBP discovered 3 vials labeled as antibodies in the baggage of a Chinese national at the DTW airport. The individual identified himself as a biologist, had not declared the materials, and when questioned, did not have appropriate documentation. When questioned, the individual advised that the items came from a researcher in China who asked him to deliver them to another colleague at an identified U.S. research institution, again not named, very notably. Inspection of the writing on the vials and the stated recipient led inspection personnel to believe the materials contained within them may be viable Middle East respiratory syndrome and severe acute respiratory syndrome, MERS and SARS materials. There it is again, my God. And then, last but not least, on or about May 26, 2018, a Chinese national entered the United States via DTW from Beijing, the People's Republic of China, when stopped by CBP. This individual stated he was a breast cancer researcher in Texas and was not traveling with any biological products. The individual was referred for additional CBP inspection, where he amended his declaration to possibly traveling with plasmids. CBP discovered 1 centrifuge tube in the individual's checked bag, and he stated it was non-infectious E. coli bacteria-derived plasmids. The individual was unable to provide any accompanying documentation or permits for these materials, which CBP placed on agriculture hold, and the individual was released. And E. coli, again, is very dangerous. So, the FBI does not state precisely what sort of biosecurity risk these cases could present, but Raina McIntyre, a professor of global biosecurity at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, said the FBI appears to be concerned with dual-use research that would be used for bioterrorism. So that's a very, very important point right there, folks. The FBI acknowledges that this appears to be bioterrorism. And now that this article's just come out, oh, you can almost feel it. They want to say that it's COVID. They want to say COVID is the next one. Bioterrorism, people smuggling this in, and they've got 3 other examples they've given you, okay? But there's still more, so let's keep reading. And if the illicit samples cited in the report were being brought into the U.S., she says the traffic is likely to go both ways. How do you know what they're bringing in and out unless you have a comprehensive surveillance point? Professor Raina McIntyre asked. If it's going on one way, it's going on the other way. You'd be very naive to assume otherwise. Retired Air Force Brigadier General Robert Spalding, who worked on China issues on the National Security Council under the Trump administration, said there is a threat posed by Chinese nationals carrying biological samples, but believes it's likely the carrier would be someone who is unwitting, making it hard to determine the intent. Some likely could be deliberate to test our ability to identify and intercept. Others could be opportunistic, he said. The FBI report refers to both biosecurity, which typically refers to the intentional misuse of pathogens such as for bioterrorism, which is bad, right? And biosafety, which covers accidental release. The FBI declined to comment on the report. Concerns about Chinese biosafety are not new. For example, the SARS outbreak in 2003 was followed by several incidents of infections caused by laboratory quote-unquote accidents, including 8 cases that resulted from mishandling at the Chinese Institute of Virology in Beijing. There have been cases in the past where a variant of some kind of flu pandemic had escaped from a laboratory because of mismanagement, said Elsa Kanya, an adjunct senior fellow at the Center for a New American Security. Well, now that sounds very Orwellian. First of all, that term, Center for a New American Security, sounds a lot like Project for a New American Century, which of course was the blueprint for 9/11 before it happened. In case you've studied all that stuff, if you're a real good conspiracy researcher, that's not new information for you. So see what they're trying to do? They're trying to say, oh, this is the result of mishandling. This is people that didn't really know what they were doing, and they just screwed up, and they were just bringing it around because, you know, they're just dorks, and they don't really think about customs. And they don't, you know, they were just lying to customs, but, you know, it's not a big deal. They were just mishandling it. Well, wait a minute. This is very, very serious stuff. The problem is not limited to Chinese researchers, even if those cases have been prominent, she continued. Certainly it is a biosecurity risk when anyone is transporting materials in a manner that is clandestine because there have been several incidents when this has occurred with researchers of a variety of nationalities. Well, yeah, this is an international problem. The cabal is not just in any two countries, China or the US. It's a lot more than that. Concerns about China's flouting of biosafety precautions may be long-standing, but the coronavirus pandemic is likely to exacerbate tensions between Beijing and Washington. Of course it will. The outbreak comes amid already rising tensions in U.S.-China relations over issues that range from trade to espionage. Andrew Weber, who worked during the Obama administration as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Nuclear, Chemical, and Biological Defense Programs, said the relationship with China in the biological sciences has gotten worse in recent years. After SARS, when China needed technical help, it had a strong relationship with the CDC. They were transparent because they realized covering up an outbreak cost them dearly, said Weber, now a senior fellow at the Council on Strategic Risks. Kind of sounds like Council on Foreign Relations, right? In recent years, they've tightened up, making international cooperation more difficult. In recent weeks, however, these tensions have rapidly boiled over, with President Trump calling COVID-19 the Chinese virus. Well, Beijing, in turn, has promoted conspiracy theories, claiming the virus originated in the U.S. weapons lab. Well, why do you think China would go to such an extent to say that if they didn't have some kind of proof? Scientists have been adamant that the virus is not a weapon either from the United States or China. So you realize what's happening right here. You have the U.S. media flagrantly giving a major country, China, the middle finger, saying, oh, whatever you think you know about this being in the U.S. biolab, it's just a conspiracy theory. There's no factual evidence. But do they engage what the Chinese said or why the Chinese have made this accusation? No. And then what the hell is going on with Charles Lieber and why were they trying to smuggle in these 21 vials into Wuhan right before the COVID thing took off? Okay, well, let's keep reading. There's no basis to suspect it's a laboratory construct, said Richard E. Bright, a professor of chemical biology at Rutgers University. It has none of the expected signatures that would be present for deliberate construction. Well, right, okay, you spend $41 billion on a virus. I think they're sophisticated enough to give it a look where it doesn't have the expected signatures that would be expected for deliberate construction. I think they'd be smart enough to make it look natural. So you can't just assume, shooting from the hip, well, you know, we just don't think, wait a minute. There's a lot of money that was put into this thing. If this is artificial, they're going to make it look natural. They don't want to make it obvious because this is a big deal. This is their big move that they've made to try to stop us from arresting them, stop themselves from being defeated. This was the Samson option, where they want to pull the plug on the planet before they get taken out. All right. However, Ebright doesn't exclude the possibility that the virus's spread started from poor biosecurity in China. A leading theory is that the virus jumped from wildlife to humans. Okay, well, that's not really what it is, but that's what they like to think. Some researchers speculate this happened at a live animal market where exotic species are sold for food. Fair enough. But Ebright also notes that such wildlife viruses are collected in laboratories, including in Wuhan, right? So now this is where they get to the idea of, yeah, maybe it's natural, but maybe people are screwing around. Therefore, it's also a possibility that this COVID virus entered the human population through accidental infection of a lab worker carrying out field collection or an accident by a lab worker characterizing the sample in a laboratory. Okay, stop. This is them getting ready to have the alibi so that when Charles Lieber and his people are brought out to the open and then they say, guess what, everybody, this is COVID-19 in the 21 vials, this article is trying to make you think, well, maybe it was because they were smuggling out research that they had done through naturally occurring animal viruses. So do you see what's going on here? They are preparing the way for the COVID announcement to be made. They are trying to cast shade on the idea that it was actually manufactured to make you think, well, okay, we're going to pin it on these Chinese guys because they were just screwing around with this thing that they found naturally. That's what I think is going on. But I want you to see a little more. It's going to get crazy here in a minute. Take a look. Independent of the coronavirus, the FBI's focus on China's biosecurity appears to be part of a long-standing suspicion in the U.S. government about China's involvement in the biological sciences. Blame China. Don't blame Bill Gates. Blame China. Several recent high-profile Justice Department cases involving the export of sensitive technology have involved Chinese scientists or persons with alleged ties to the Chinese government. Okay, yeah, that's true. Most prominently, the Justice Department in January, announced charges against, there he is, Charles Lieber, the chair of Harvard's Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology, for concealing his ties to the Chinese government. Let's blame it all on China. Don't say who was paying him. Blame it on China. It's a clear-cut case of a conflict of interest, and unfortunately, it's not an isolated event or incident, said the FBI Special Agent Joseph R. Bonavolonta, head of the Boston field office, in announcing these charges. Lieber, who is free on a $1 million bond, has not yet entered his plea on the charges, and here is his perp walk. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see him when he's going out of federal court. He's been arrested. You can see he's very conflicted, and he should be. You know, it's a shame. If what he did is true, what we think he did is true, come on, man. The FBI's focus on China and Chinese scientists is also raising concerns among some academics who fear it smacks of racial profiling. I'm concerned that the current trend in national security is toward profiling against people of Chinese descent, said Nicholas Evans, an assistant professor at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, who specializes in medical ethics. So you see this, right? Now they're trying to say, well, maybe it was some Chinese guys who found coronavirus in nature, and they mishandled it, and they screwed up, and they infected themselves, and then they infected other people, and yeah, they were smuggling things around, but it's all the Chinese. You know, don't say who was paying Charles Lieber. Let's just throw in Charles Lieber so that you're familiar with this, but we're not going to really say what happened. And let's just, let's make it racist, right? Let's say, you're trying to say that all Chinese people, right, Asians, they just like to smuggle viruses in their pockets. That's just what they do because they're Asians. I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. You're a racist if you talk about this. No, I don't care what race you are. If you're smuggling frickin' viruses, it doesn't matter what race you are. That's called something bad. That's bioterrorism, right? Anyway, let's keep going. That's not only racist, it's bad practice. FBI and other intelligence and law enforcement attempts at profiling have very often been harmful without making us any safer. So yeah, let's just try to avoid hurting anybody's feelings. Let's not bust the virus smugglers. Because if they're Asian, we don't want to racially profile them, right? This is ridiculous. Evans also questioned the FBI's focus on scientists hand-carrying biological samples as a unique threat. He's questioning the focus? Come on. He pointed to previous examples like a U.S. lab in Maine that was fined more than a decade ago for importing highly pathogenic avian flu viruses from Saudi Arabia. Well, that's weird. The FBI claims it is impossible to determine the contents of samples accurately, even if they're declared under current import laws. That's true, but I'm skeptical about the degree to which this particular behavior adds significant risk to security, given that there are many other ways to get biological organisms into the country. Okay, now what is he saying? He's saying, there's other ways they could do it, so we don't need to get all worried about this. It's not that big of a deal, It just happens. People smuggle stuff, not a big deal. We don't want to hurt their feelings. We don't want to look like we're racist. Wait a minute. Yanzhong Huang, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, said it's true that China has long had loopholes in its biosafety regulations. Quote, that's why Chinese President Xi Jinping in February talked about beefing up the legislation for biosafety and biosecurity, he said. That history has already encouraged rumors like the idea that the coronavirus originated as a bioweapon. Okay, so before we go on here, apparently we have comments coming in. Oh my God, David is not answering the questions and answers. Yes, I am. Many of the questions and answers were about wanting more information on what's going on with the coronavirus, of course, because this is a big part of it, so I'm giving you some new information. I have a whole series of slides, folks, where I go through all the Q&As, all the big questions. So I'm going through this as quick as I can, but I do believe this is mission-critical information, So hang in there. We're going to get to your Q&A soon enough, all right? It's all going to happen. I promise. Now, with relations between China and the U.S. deteriorating, Huang expects collaboration on biological research to grow even more difficult, reversing decades of cooperation. He says, I often argue U.S. engagement with China is the most successful in the era of public health. Such cooperation even survived a difficult period after the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. Now, however, those relations are being set back as hostilities between the two countries grow. You could argue health is borderless, especially when two countries face these common challenges. This would be a time for them to collaborate mostly closely, he said. That turned out not to be the case. All right, so now we get into this thing, which is so funny. Okay, Bill Gates, don't worry, Bill Gates is going to come to the rescue. He's going to save you from the dreaded coronavirus, which he might have actually paid for based on some of the intel we're getting. And what is he saying? Locked gates. Oh, there's a pun, right? Bill Gates warns the lockdown could last 10 weeks and should be nationwide, as Trump wants to restart the economy in days. And then it says, Bill Gates has warned that a super painful period of social isolation should now be the top priority. In fighting the coronavirus across the U.S., the Microsoft founder was speaking as part of an ongoing CNN town hall, oh, of course, CNN, on the pandemic, and said that 6 to 10 weeks of hardcore isolation nationwide is now necessary. And the caption there says, Bill has warned that a super painful period of social isolation is needed to fight the coronavirus. What about those hands, Bill? What about those hands? Are those hands the hands that put themselves on the money that paid for this thing? Did those hands send emails and texts to people asking when was the virus going to be ready? Can we release it now? Should we wait? Did those hands shake hands with the people who he paid to make this virus? Did those hands work on touching the walls in the lab as he leans against the wall and he's laughing as they're telling him how effective this thing is going to be? I don't know. But I don't like this at all because remember, Bill Gates stepped down on Friday the 13th. And they're trying to make Trump look bad, which is normal. Oh, but wait a minute, there's a silver lining. Because there was, however, some light at the end of the tunnel, Gates said, pointing out that the vaccine trials are now underway. Well, wouldn't it be nice to get a Bill Gates vaccine, right? Well, the vaccine could very well be the problem. So I went and I looked at this. It's kind of a big announcement, you know. Bill Gates is trying to say we got to stay down for 2 months, which of course is going to completely devastate the economy, which is their agenda. And I want you to look at the comments. This is so freaking funny, okay? Here's the first page, and you got the sidebar there. I'm going to take it away. It says, first comment, Bill Gates is a hypocrite. He should donate $60 billion to the people of California. Second comment, no one wants your AI vaccine, Billy. Go F yourself. We're going back to work in the areas the president says are fine, not you. Then, the next comment is, easy for a billionaire to say. Then the next comment is, Gates is no medical expert. He is a delusional billionaire who thinks he is a master of the universe, a eugenic creep. Then the next comment, Bill Gates is a college dropout who never earned any undergraduate degree. Apparently he has lost his mind and believes he has a PhD in epidemiology. And then, what do we got? I find Gates and his ugly wife to be absolutely repulsive. They are for eliminating a large portion of the world's population. The next comment says, how much has this multi-billionaire donated to the CDC, vaccine research, cancer research, and veterans? Guess he's too busy utilizing all of his medical expertise shilling for CNN. Then it says, easy for Gates to sit on his billions and tell others what to do. He doesn't have to worry about where his family's next meal will come from. Stick to your own business. And by the way, spend your time fixing the Windows 10 mess. Another Bill who thinks his success at one enterprise makes him expert in all others. Reboot. Bill Gates should zip it. Getting rich off of a mediocre operating system does not make him an expert here. So this is really, really great and really, really funny. We are going to get to the Q&A, folks, and we do have to get through other stuff first. So please, you don't need to keep making that comment, okay? We know. Thank you. So this is another thing that came out. Bill Gates is not planning to use microchip implants to fight the coronavirus. If you heard that story, you can pause it here and read that. That is actually not true. So I want to calculate some percentages here. What percentage of the world's population has actually died from the coronavirus? We look at the population, 7.8 billion people. This is one way to calculate it. Here's some numbers from around the world. So there it is. That's what 78 billion looks like. You can stop this and count the zeros. So then we got to figure out, okay, how many deaths? I looked that up. At the time I did, it was 27,198, right? So 7.8 billion divided by 27,198 gets you this number, 286,785 units of that. Then in order to figure out a percentage, you got to divide 286,785 into 100, and lo and behold, you get this number. So let's again be clear that the percentage of the world's population that has died from this virus is 0.0003%, which all of a sudden makes all this media fear-mongering look a lot less serious, right? Think about it. And then as I said last time, what was the cost per casualty? You can estimate the $41 billion from the Gates Foundation, an extra 5 that they spent on other stuff. You divide that number in, and lo and behold, what you get is $1.5 million per death. That is a very expensive virus. Unbelievable. We've already seen some things suggesting the internet might go down, the 3 days of darkness. I don't know when it's going to be. It could be the end of the month, could be next month, could be tomorrow. I have no idea, but I'm very excited about it when it does happen. And again, we already got the first emergency broadcast system message here in Los Angeles. The phone went crazy. It goes, makes this horrible noise. And then it says you got to stay home over the weekend. So that already did happen. So the next one could be coming anytime. A lot of people are now depositing money. They're getting out of the markets in a flight to quality. That's one of the things. This bill, the $2.2 trillion bill, a lot of really great stuff happened that's going to help real people like veterans. And all the mainstream media wants to do is act like it's all pork and it's all just bad stuff. But no, this is actually helping real people stop complaining about it, including nationalizing the Federal Reserve, which we've been asking for ever since Kennedy. A lot of people are getting a spiritual awakening from this, the coronavirus Great Awakening. Hollywood is now saying, they're never going to work again. That's it. I'll never work for you again. We're done. Hollywood is over, and we're never coming back. Well, that's just ridiculous. They'll obviously want to do more when everybody goes back to work. Anyway, you might not have seen this before, but this is all coming out now. Pictures of Jeffrey Epstein with Bill Clinton, and they look awfully chummy, don't they? And Epstein looks like he's had a few too many to drink. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to come out, folks. That's just the beginning, And this was where Q announced that the Federal Reserve had been nationalized. The headlines are getting crazier and crazier, as you see right here. The quarantine, civil unrest, but it's not really happening. Then you have other headlines, as I've said before, that look differently, where China has proven that COVID can be stopped in its tracks just by the same thing we're doing, social distancing. They have no new cases except for those that are imported, and in fact, single-digit cases, meaning less than 10, okay? It's not a big deal anymore. And then we talked about this guy, the Nobel laureate, predicting that we're going to get through this a lot quicker than the media is saying. I talked about that last time. And that was another one from him. But yet we have headlines like this, 100 to 200,000 dead in America, no city will be spared, lockdowns could go on for months. And then with a sidebar like that, which you can pause and look at. Now, 200,000 people in a country that has 3.3 million people is still less than 1%. So yeah, it sucks, and I'm not saying this thing is nice. This is a horrible problem. It's a very serious problem. But it's definitely not going to kill large numbers of the population. It's just not. It has a bell curve. It goes up and down. It decays quickly. We're all doing social distancing, and everybody who's immune can go back to work. They're not going to give it to anybody, and they're not going to get it. Okay? It's that simple. Once you get over this thing, you're done. So then you have crazy, crazy stuff like this coming out. Facebook, Google, and Twitter are struggling to handle the election after spending billions to avoid a repeat of 2016, i.e. Trump winning. The tech giants are careening from crisis to crisis as their foes change tactics. This is ridiculous. They're literally complaining about how they're trying to stop Trump from winning the next election through tampering, and we already know what they're up to, and they're complaining about how it's not working. Isn't that something? The virus has transformed the elections. Here's how. This is where they're saying nobody's going to be campaigning, nobody's going to be debating, and it's all going to be done by mail, which they can totally manipulate. And now they're trying to debunk good information like the fact that if you take vitamin D, which I was talking about, that you're less susceptible to have as bad of a symptom. Of course, they want to debunk everything and have you feel hopeless. So we got these horrible headlines like this: Italy is fearing riots, April has been canceled, SOS, New York City. You click on that, it's not a big deal. It's just about that boat going in. But Drudge is kind of making some real headlines here. Oh my God, more dead than 9/11. Well, yeah, it's like 4,000, okay? Not a big deal, come on. And then another sidebar that's just loaded with this crazy stuff. The cabal, of course, has to kick in by lighting up the Great Pyramid in Egypt with an all-seeing eye type of green light at the top, except instead of the all-seeing eye, it says, stay home. Which is actually a tongue-in-cheek joke, really, where like they're saying that's what the all-seeing eye is telling you, to stay home. They want you to stay home indefinitely so they can collapse the economy and get their New World Order, which is not going to work. But again, here they are actually screwing around with the Great Pyramid, showing you the all-seeing eye and all this beam of light going up there. Or the equivalent of where the all-seeing eye is, at least. Now, oh my God, 240,000 dead. That's still less than 1%. Yeah, it sucks, and we're going to have to expand and have emergency hospitals because these idiots did try to kill everybody on the planet. It's just lots and lots of crazy headlines like this, folks. And then you got stuff like this where they're saying, okay, it's still nowhere near as bad as cancer or heart disease, but it's now in third place. Fair enough, but it goes away quickly. That's what you got to remember. So this is now getting right up to the present, all the headlines right up until the time that we're on right now. And they're again saying that the deficits could go back to World War II levels. Everybody is super mad at celebrities right now because they're in these wonderful houses and they're acting like it sucks. Well, no, enjoy your house. So now's not a good time for celebrities. And then they got stuff like this. Oh, well, you know, the idea that Wuhan is positive, it's not very comforting. It's all trying to make you think it's still bad, even though nobody's actually got the virus anymore. They're just trying to make it look bad. And then all this stuff about mass graves. Well, yeah, they probably do need some. But then when that has to be dug, they make a huge deal out of it. But again, it's a very small percentage compared to the whole population. Now, this is some really great hero-making speech that QAnon has given us, and I want to read it to you so they have a voice. And then right after that, we're launching directly into your questions. But you got to hear this. This is really cool, okay? This is what QAnon had to say about the whole thing. A person's value. Number 1, to vote. Number 2, their monetary value or tax contribution. Number 3, and then they leave that one blank. Why is free thought being ridiculed, challenged, and threatened when a person is opposed to the mainstream narrative? Number 2, i.e. value, a person's financial value, remains fixed to the degree allowable by economic recession or expansion. Number 1, the person's vote does remain a variable. You can change how people vote. Number 1 is dependent on a controlled system of information dissemination. What happens when 90% of the media is controlled and owned by only 6 corporations, which we know is true? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? And there's plenty of whistleblower data proving that that's true. Project Veritas, James O'Keefe, they're doing an amazing job. Lots of whistleblowers coming forward saying they are trying to rig this in favor of the Democrats. Absolutely. What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy? What happens when the news simply becomes an extension or arm of a political party? Well, if it's my party, I don't care. Well, yeah, you should. You actually should. Fact becomes fiction. Fiction becomes fact. When does news become propaganda? Well, this has already happened. Identity creation? How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find the time to research and discern fact versus fiction? Well, it's very difficult to do that. I spend my whole day looking at this stuff. The majority of people are more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name? Yes. Do people in their human psyches tend to follow the majority mainstream viewpoint in the fear of being isolated and or shunned? Yes. Mainstream is used for a reason, to dominate the trends in people's opinions. If the majority of people believe X, then X must be true, and it must be validated. Why do these mainstream media heads within different organizations always use the same keywords or catchphrases? Is it coordinated, and by who? Is there an outside entity providing them with instructions? Yes, that's the deep state. Do they count on the fact that people in their human psyche are more prone to believe something if they hear it over and over again by these so-called trusted sources? Yes, that's true. Do these echo chamber tactics provide validation and credibility to the topic or point being discussed? For a lot of people, it does. Is this a threat to our intellectual freedom? Absolutely. They are censoring all dissenting opinions. You cannot talk about the opposing side on the internet. They will shadow ban you, they will delete you, they will take down your channel, they will attack you. You cannot do it. Would control over these institutions and organizations allow for the mass control of a population's viewpoint regarding a desired topic? I guess that's topic. That's a Q blooper there. Read again and digest. Would control over these institutions or organizations allow for the mass control of a population's viewpoint regarding a desired topic? There, it's spelled right. That might have been my fault, actually. I don't know. Logical thinking, folks. Just use your logical thinking. The control over these institutions does allow for them to control how the population thinks. Why, after the election of 2016, did Democrats and media corporations jumpstart a coordinated and planned divisive blitz intended to create falsehoods regarding the illegitimacy of the election, the character assassination of POTUS through sexism, racism, every other ism, before and after the 2016 election? Why were violent masked terror organizations such as Antifa immediately created and funded, which we know was done by Soros? They've said that many times. Why were these organizations tasked with immediate intimidation and shutdown of any pro-POTUS rallies or events? Well, if you support people being able to be free in America, that shouldn't be happening. You should be able to go to a political rally even if you don't like what those people are talking about. You shouldn't have them be threatened. Why were these marches immediately organized to counter and silence pro-POTUS rallies and/or events? Why were the marches immediately organized, which divided people into sex and gender, race, and other isms? When you control the levers of news dissemination, like they're doing with this virus, you control the narrative. Controlling the narrative equals power. See, this is a really big cue drop they just did. When you are blind, what do you see? You only see what they want you to see. They want you divided. Divided by religion. Divided by sex. Divided by your political affiliation. Divided by your class. When you are divided and angry and controlled, you target those who are different from you, not those who are responsible, i.e. the controllers. Divided, you are weak. Divided, you pose no threat to their control. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and/or stable, where they keep us like sheep or livestock. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable in the groupthink collective, and now you have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism, rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. So, yeah, you got to reason it out, use logic, and actually deal in facts. This represents a clear and present danger to the constitutional republic of the United States of America. And then this epic missive goes on with what this particular Q website gave the title of, "When you are awake, you are able to clearly see." And there's 3 of these posts, so this is the second one. Decide for yourself. Be free from outside opinion. Decide for yourself. Be objective in your conclusions. Decide for yourself. Be true in your own beliefs. Decide for yourself. Be open to following the facts. Decide for yourself. Be strong in defending your beliefs. Decide for yourself. Be resistant to blindly accepting factless statements. Those who attack you, those who mock you, those who call you, and they're definitely speaking about this virus now, those who control you, those who label you, do they actually represent you, or do they represent themselves in some form? This is how they are creating mental enslavement. The Great Awakening, or freedom of thought, was designed and created not only as a back channel to the public, and now they're talking about the Q posts, that's what they're calling the Great Awakening. This was designed and created not only as a back channel to the public, away from the long-standing mind control of the corrupt, heavily biased media, to endure future events through transparency and regeneration of individual thought, thereby breaking the chains of groupthink. So this is great. They're getting the information out in a clear channel, but more importantly, this was done to aid in the construction of a vehicle or a ship that provides these scattered free thinkers with a starter new social networking platform. That would be 8kun, now backed up on the Department of Defense's own web server, which allows for freedom of thought, expression, and patriotism or national pride, the feeling of love, devotion, and sense of attachment to a homeland, and an alliance with other citizens who share the same sentiment. They're not letting you do that with big tech. They are deleting everybody who even tries to have other than their enforced viewpoint. When non-dogmatic information becomes free and transparent, it becomes a threat to those who attempt to control the narrative and/or the stable, i.e. the farm animal analogy. When you are awake, you stand on the outside of the stable, the groupthink collective. You're not a sheep, and you have free thought. Free thought is a philosophical viewpoint which holds that positions regarding truth should be formed on the basis of logic, reason, and empiricism, rather than authority, tradition, revelation, or dogma. When you are awake, you are able to clearly see. The choice is yours and yours alone. Trust and put faith in yourself. You are not alone, and you are not in the minority. Now check this out, folks. Difficult truths will soon see the light of day. Where we go one, we go all. So there you go. Once again, even though they don't give us a whole lot, right? They did just say difficult truths will soon see the light of day. Remember in other shows I'm saying the enormity of what is coming will shock the world. That was another statement they made. And they keep saying it's going to be biblical. Well, now we know 3 days of darkness, turning off the phone and the internet, would be a kind of biblical event. So one of the questions that we're going to have here in a moment is, well, David, when do you think the 3 days are going to be? I don't have any intel about that I could say for sure, but I did get a dream this morning, and the dream was where I actually saw the open tomb. It looked like probably a scene of Jesus' tomb, right? And I had to go up to the tomb. I had gone through these other things where I had to enter into previous tombs. It was this whole long initiation I went through in the dream. But I was going up to this tomb, and I had to make sure that all the booby traps were removed before I could actually enter into this tomb. And it was a big stone, big door in a cave in the wall. So one of the things was there was a step that was gold colored, and I couldn't step on the gold or else it was going to set off a booby trap. So I had to avoid that. Well, I went through a few of these traps, and I thought I had it, and then I walk up to the door, and out comes this woman who is screaming like she's possessed by the devil. She's screaming like a banshee. She's got black hair, parted down the middle, goes down like this. She's wearing a weird white gown, and she's just all crazy and screaming, ah! And I had to like totally back up. I had to back all the way down the stairs, get the hell out of her way, and after she ran off, only then did it look like I was going to be able to go into the cave. So based on, now normally I don't like to make a prophecy off of one dream. I typically get 3, okay? But I haven't had any other dreams like this, so I'm just moving forward to share it with you. My guess is that the screaming woman that comes out of the cave means there's one more big crazy thing that we're going to go through first, the last little defensive move from the deep state that's going to be some version of this lady screaming like a ghost before we get the 3 days, okay? Because the 3 days were what Jesus spent inside the cave before the resurrection. So this dream appeared to be telling me it's not going to happen immediately, and there's going to be one more really weird, crazy, upsetting thing, or maybe a cluster of them. I don't know what the woman really represents. That's the best intel I have. So before we get to all your other questions, I want to read you the last bit of this 3-part Q thing, because I think this is an award-winning speech. But again, they said, difficult truths will soon see the light of day. I am going to try to keep this one to 2.5 hours, by the way, so just hang in there. This is about saving America, okay? The entire world is watching. Patriots around the world are praying for America because we have a big problem here that we're trying to cleanse. We are all bound by a feeling deep inside, a feeling that cannot be publicly expressed for fear of ridicule up until now, a feeling that challenges the mainstream narrative against that which we were told to accept and dare not question. Put simply, that people are being abused by those in power and time is running out. And that's true. The longer we wait to do this, the more difficult it will be to defeat these people. Remember the battles of Lexicon. Oh yeah, I can speak. Remember the battles of Lexington and Concord. Give me liberty or give me death. For far too long, we have been silent, and we have allowed our bands of strength that we once formed to defend freedom and liberty to deteriorate. We became divided. We became weak. We elected traitors to govern us. We allowed evil to prey on us. Those who have claimed to represent us gave us false hope and made false promises. The evil and corruption only grew. This is more than party politics. This is about restoring us to old glory. This is about saving our land and our people from those who wish us harm. This is about preserving our republic. This is about preserving our safety. This is about restoring our strength. This is about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is about protecting our children. This is about saving America. We are all God's children. We are fathers. We are mothers. We are daughters, and they're speaking now about the Alliance and everybody else. We are sons. We are brothers. And we are sisters. We do not look at race. We do not look at skin color. We are united in these states of America. We are and always will be patriots, and we must rise again. We must unite again. We must fight again. So there is going to be a fight. This is not going to be easy once they release all this information. For God and country, God bless America. Where we go one, we go all. All right, all right, all right. We do answer your questions, so now we've gotten to that point, so you don't have to drink the haterade, everybody. We're good. I wasn't going to steer you wrong. You asked questions, we're answering them. So first of all, I want to talk about this idea that the ability to manipulate mass consciousness through the media is how the cabal defines black magic. This is a form of sorcery, using the media to promote falsehoods, to promote lies, to promote only one political party. And again, if you identify with the Democrats, you should still be concerned that the people on the other side are being completely stopped from talking. Don't feel good about that just because, well, shit, my team is winning, man. No, no, no. It's like there's something really freaking scary if you're having an electoral process and only one side gets to speak and the other side is being aggressively censored by big tech and big media, okay? Well, but I can't stand his mouth. He's got a big effing mouth and he says all this stuff and I'm so offended. The alliance is a lot bigger than one guy. The deep state wants you to be angry at one guy because that's simple, that's easy. You can wrap your head around that. You can't wrap your head around a whole bunch of countries all over the world all collaborating together on something that nobody knows yet because it's still secret. Unless you go and you look at sources like QAnon, which is clearly proven that it's coming from the U.S. administration. You have to be a total idiot not to see that QAnon is the U.S. presidential administration. They're making it so obvious, and I don't mean to insult you. I'm sorry if I called you an idiot, okay? But it's really easy to figure out. They've done so many things that are so easy to figure out. And all I want to know is, when are you guys going to say that you were responsible for this? When do we get the truth? Well, it appears that it happens very soon, okay? So, this is the big question. We have had so many versions of this question. Oh my God. How does 5G fit into everything that is happening right now? Isn't 5G more of our concern than the coronavirus? And is this all a big distraction so they could roll out 5G during the 3 days? Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right. Full confession, when I was with Pete Peterson and we were working together, I met the guys who were allowed to bring out 5G. They lived in Idaho. They were the people who were authorized to bring this thing out. At the time, the original version of 5G was called air fiber. And I met them, I would say, maybe in 2010, 2011. Back then, I was really excited about it because I saw a speed test that they did of not even a full version of the system, but a less version of the system, and it was 100 megabits per second. And I said, wow, that's really fast. Now, they were telling me about how it works, and I had a briefing with them. I was sitting in the room with them as they were telling me about this. that it was going to go over millimeter wave, which is not even regulated at the time, wasn't regulated by the FCC, very high speed frequency. Now I asked these guys, if you're going to roll out something like this, you have to have the health considerations kept in mind. Is this thing dangerous to biological life? They told me no. And I asked them, well, you need the proof. If you're going to come out with this thing, you got to tell people scientific proof. You got to have studies that show that it has been tested and that it's safe. Now, they didn't have that information, but they said that it was. They also let me know in a roundabout way that this was already something they had on the inside and they were being kind of more or less allowed to bring it out. So I heard all this way back when, and now the 5G is coming out. Now, there have been a number of things that have been released into the public consciousness very recently, including recordings. There's one recording of a guy who has some kind of a English accent, I believe, and he doesn't say his name, and he said he worked for Vodafone, but he doesn't give a whole lot of information, and then he immediately goes into this whole elaborate, wild conspiracy theory about 5G. Now, I'm not trying to throw shade on this guy. Maybe he's real, okay? But it sounds too good, okay? Because what is he saying? He's saying that the real reason why people are dying from the alleged coronavirus is because they're turning on 5G. And he's saying, oh, Wuhan got outfitted with 5G and they turned it on and that's why everybody's dying. Well, wait a minute. If that's true, then why have all the cases dropped off? In other words, if 5G is what is causing this, how did the epidemiologist who won the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, Michael Levitt, how was he able to calculate the number of coronavirus deaths down to 5? How did he do that? And why is it following all the standard curves of a pandemic? Because it's not 5G, okay? And this is just, again, logic. It's simple logic. So you have to understand the deep state loves, now I don't know if that's what this guy is, and maybe there's something to the 5G thing. I'm not saying there isn't, okay? But I always look deeper. I always ask questions. I'm not content with the official explanation. And I'm always suspicious when somebody just pops up and they sound really smooth, but they're trying to pivot everybody away from coronavirus. So 5G could be a way in this case to get people's attention away from the coronavirus now that the deep state knows that it's going to be exposed as actually being man-made, highly contagious, and it's definitely real. Is it possible that 5G could piggyback on this virus to make it worse? Yes, that's possible. I'm not saying it isn't. So to get to the root of this question, I want to really emphasize something here, which I think is very important, okay? When we're talking about these higher dimensional beings, when we're talking about extraterrestrial guidance, extraterrestrial contact, like what I've gotten by reading The Law of One, studying it, living with the people that did it for 2 years, okay? What you find out is that there are different levels of these angelic planetary saving beings, okay? You got fourth density, which is, you know, pretty similar to us, but they're still very advanced. They still have levitation, telekinesis. And there's a question in here about density versus dimension, so we'll get into that in a minute. But then you have a whole other dimensional level that you can make of a quantum leap after that, which is fifth density. And at this point, they still have something like a body. But now they do not necessarily require craft to travel. They could travel by thought alone, okay? And apparently at that level, they actually manifest their own food, which is a liquid nectar that they manifest and drink made of pure light. A liquid light broth, which must taste really great. If that's all they're going to have, it must be awesome. That's all I can say. Then when you go up to sixth density, you have beings that are the equivalent, in the Law of One it says they're the equivalent of a whole planet worth of people like us that have merged into a single collective consciousness. That's really amazing. So if you have something of that magnitude, if you have beings that have formed a global, like a whole planet worth of people like Earth, but they're one mind, that's a very, very advanced race, and it's not like the Borg. They're actually very harmonious in this case. But the point being, okay, that at that level they exist as what are called guardians, and they guard over entire planets. The only level higher than that is 7th density, which is the last level you get to before you go back to the one infinite creator at the octave level or 8th density. 7th density beings don't work with us directly. They create a living repository of the wisdom they gathered, which is like the internet, and then they leave it behind when they go back to the octave, and they only consult with 6th density beings. So 6th density beings in the Law of One system are the highest level beings who interact with us. They do not have bodies unless they choose to project themselves into a body. Now in the Law of One series, the source said that they were at 6th density, but they had to downshift back into 5th density in order to help out our planet in these last days. And they also say that they are heavily identified with the hawk, and that this was what they chose their appearance to be. So this is where you get into Horus and the idea of hawk-headed beings that are depicted in the Egyptian murals going back, which probably is now 12,000, 13,000 years ago, to Zep-Tepi, or the first time in Egypt. So these blue avians that Corey Goode was seeing are not new. William Henry was the one who brought this out. I didn't even know this, but William Henry found paintings on the frescoes in these Egyptian tombs of Horus where he had a blue skin, or blue feathers, I guess. So there's a lot of cool stuff about that, but the point is, I do believe, because of all the years that I'd studied the Law of One, because I lived with the people who did it, that when Corey Goode came along, that he got contacted by this group. Do we know whether this was physical in-person contact or whether it was something telepathic beamed into his mind? No, we don't. But it's very interesting information, and it's added a lot of questions. It's answered a lot of questions as well. So, I want to get back to what does it say in the Law of One about life on Earth. It says that we are totally protected. Nothing will happen that will disturb the so-called ascension or harvest, okay? They will not allow a nuclear war. They will not allow anything on Earth that's going to cause a mass death. So the beings themselves will not allow a pandemic to occur. And there's a great deal of evidence for this. There's all these reports of cigar-shaped or other types of UFOs appearing over nuclear missile installations, powering down the entire installation, and in many cases actually rendering the warheads themselves radioactively inert. This is a widespread observation of how extraterrestrials, or alleged extraterrestrials, whatever those craft are, it's something, okay? It's not our normal stuff. They're powering down the nukes. This has happened to China, this has happened to Russia, this has happened to India, it's happened to Pakistan. Everybody who's got nukes has had this happen to them, the US, everybody. Now, we've heard about the planet-killing financial collapse. We've heard about that the cabal wants to herd everybody into FEMA camps, right? I've been saying all along that stuff is never going to happen because these positive beings are like letting us play in the sandbox, and we can create some disruption in the sandbox. We can throw some sand around, metaphorically speaking, and of course some of that sand does involve people dying, but they're not going to allow the whole planet to be wiped out. Therefore, the cabal has consistently discovered that whenever they try to make this stuff happen, whenever they try to kill lots of people, it can't work. I heard from Illuminati insiders that they've tried multiple times to create viruses that would kill all life on Earth, and they're frustrated because it just doesn't work. So even with COVID-19, if you believe that it's artificially constructed, they got the contagion really well, they got that part done, but they couldn't get the lethality, okay? So this is reaching a point, okay? People get all freaked out about chemtrails. Oh my God, the chemtrails. They get all freaked out about 5G. Oh my God, 5G. Is it possible that 5G, if theoretically, if the deep state were theoretically allowed to use it the way they wanted to, is it possible that 5G could be designed to cause a great deal of trouble? Absolutely. I've had other insiders tell me that the millimeter wave bandwidth has been used for a long time in covert military projects, including projects that influence people's thoughts and how they behave, okay? That's true. But, once again, the cabal will find out this time, just like they have every other time, that if they try to use something like this, when they try to flip the switch, it simply won't frickin' work. Why? Because, whether you want to believe this or not, There are powerful and wonderful angelic beings, okay, that are behind all the world's leading spiritual traditions and religions. They have been trying to get us to be more loving, to love each other. They're not going to let these idiots destroy the planet. They simply will not allow it to happen. So the deep state will keep petitioning that, well, can we try this, you guys? Can we try to nuke everybody? Nope. Can we try to create a debilitating global financial collapse where everybody descends into chaos and starvation and anarchy and rioting and looting and cannibalism? It's never happened up until now. It's not going to happen now, okay? This is not killing very many people. Society's going to come back on. The lights are going to come back on. And it's very likely that we're getting this amazing global economic reset, arresting of deep state perpetrators. You look at how confident Q is. They say very disturbing truths are about to come to light. And you're going to want to put the truth back in the bottle. You're not going to want to know the truth, but we need to go through this. As I've said so many times, if you throw up, you'll feel better. We need to have a collective vomiting. Oh my God, it's horrible. Oh my God, the information, I don't want to know. Well, you got to know. We got to get through this together. So I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about 5G. I'm not worried that they could turn it on, because if they try, it's not going to succeed. And there's so many examples of this divine intervention stuff. For example, I got a number of briefings from Pete Peterson on stuff like this going back to 2010, okay? You had cases where Israeli intelligence had determined that Pakistanis were going to invade Israel, and they were waiting in an ambush. And literally you have both sides, and they're trying to fire their guns, and the guns won't fire. They can't even pull the sword out of the sheath because some kind of beam was beamed into them where the metal expanded and they couldn't make these things work, and then when you turn the beam off, it works again. These hardened warriors, apparently this happened 3 times. 3 different times they tried to have this little war. These hardened warriors got down on their knees, looked up at the sky, and cried because God was intervening. What they thought was God was intervening, so they couldn't fight this war. Okay? Another example, you had covert missions that were going to bomb Syria. They couldn't get the bomb bay doors to open. The payload door wouldn't open. They had jets that they tried to fire up. The jets won't start. They had tanks they tried to fire up. The tanks won't start. This happened over and over again. Another example of what they actually tried to do that didn't work is they wanted to do another Gulf oil spill disaster. Remember when that rig blew up and it all emptied out into the Gulf of Mexico? All this black oil, this horrible crap. And everybody thought it was the end of the world, and the media was like, oh my God, we're all going to die. That's it, right? And it all got cleaned up. Well, they were going to do another one of those in the Persian Gulf. And there was a covert team of guys that work underwater. They have scuba gear, and they have backpacks on. And in the backpack, with one of the operatives, was an explosive. They were going to blow up this oil well in the Persian Gulf, and they were going to create another Gulf oil spill in the Persian Gulf. Now these guys were trying to swim into the rig. They were going to do it all underwater, undetected. They were going to plant the explosive, get the hell out of there, blow it up, and create this disaster. What happened is, and we got this from more than one independent source, they hit a wall in the ocean. They hit an energetic wall, and they couldn't get through the wall. They couldn't penetrate this energetic barrier. They tried to go over it. They tried to actually go up over it like a dolphin jumping. They couldn't go up over it. They tried to go underneath it. They couldn't go underneath it. It wasn't visible. There was no visible anything. But if you tried to swim into the wall, it would stretch, and then it would eventually push you back. It was like elastic. Okay? The operatives literally tried to penetrate this defense for 12 hours. And they couldn't get through, and they eventually abandoned the mission. Now, I have heard of so many examples. Every time the deep state tries to do something that's out of bounds, they're not allowed to do it. It is forbidden. It is not permitted. And it kind of amazes me that they don't realize that they're only allowed to do what they're allowed to do. But they keep trying and trying and trying and trying. So I find it very interesting that they were allowed to do COVID-19. They were allowed to do this, but look at what's happening. It's really not that big of a deal. Less than 1% of people are dying worldwide right now. Maybe it'll go up to 1%. That's still not a whole lot. It's mostly people who had advanced age and advanced health problems anyway, which is sad, but still, most people are not going to be affected by this. And what do? You get to be at home, you get to have some time off. The IRS has now delayed when you have to file your taxes to July 15th. That's official information. So you have some time off, you can relax, you can chill out, and you have time to meditate, you have time to talk to your family, to read books, to watch videos like this. It's actually a great opportunity for solitude, for rest, for all these cool things. So, I do not believe that if they do have the ability to make 5G wipe us out, that if they tried to use it, that they would be allowed to use it for the same reasons of all the other things that I said. So I really don't think that the coronavirus is caused by 5G. I do think it's a virus. They don't want you to see that they spent probably $40 billion developing this thing. So they're putting out a lot of other, chaff and distraction. But again, it's not the end of the world. They're not going to kill you off. We're all going to get through this, and there's going to be an amazing, great awakening. So let's go on with the next question now. Are the 3 days of darkness going to occur globally as well as with the arrests, or are they just in the U.S.? Okay, great question. It is my understanding, and I'll preface it with that very dodgy, politically worded statement, it is my understanding that this is worldwide. I don't know for sure, but it sure sounds like it, because apparently they got to shut the whole internet off to clip out certain nodes in which data is flowing through, and the deep state is able to harness that data and use it for mass surveillance and killing people. So the alliance is going to literally edit out all the suckage points where the deep state could suck in that data and use it to continue to enhance their agenda. Therefore, once the internet comes back on, it has been essentially debugged. It has been deloused. It has had a parasite cleanse. And all of the deep state crap is gone, and they can't surveil us anymore. They've lost the keys to the car. So that's going to involve very likely a worldwide internet shutdown. It would have to. I don't know if the phone and stuff is also going to go down around the world. It's definitely going to be in the US, and it's almost certainly going to be in Europe as well. And there's already reports right now, which I didn't have time to get in this show. We'll do it in the next one. There's already reports right now about how Britain is getting ready, is telling people, get ready, you might have to have power out and your internet out. So I think this is really going to be a big deal. The arrests are not just going to happen in the US. Defender Europe 20 has 38,000 troops all over Europe, and they are going to be grabbing people very likely out of the Vatican, very likely out of some of the financial centers and some of the geopolitical centers. Without getting into too much detail, I'm amazed that they allowed me to give you this briefing, because I figured it would ruin the element of surprise. But apparently they don't think these guys have anywhere to go, even if they know once the phones and the internet go down that they're screwed. They don't have anywhere they can go. They're all being monitored. And I just actually had one of my insiders tell me just the other day, if you get this assassination from a high level, it's going to be your best friend who kills you. Your best friend. That's how deeply these agents work. They get embedded into your life, they become your best friend, and then they try to kill you. So what we've heard is that many of these deep state people don't realize that their top advisors, the people closest to them, are the ones that are going to be betraying them when this thing happens, and they're playing an amazing game. Sadly, some of these people are having to go through with the satanic rituals, go through with the baby eating, blood drinking. They're having to play along and do all that stuff, knowing that they're going to be pulling the plug on their bosses anyway. That is a horrific mission. Thank God I didn't have to do that. Anyway, next slide. So we have many, many questions on the 3 days. What is going to happen? Why is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Where is it going to happen? Okay, please, again, I am not an elected official. I don't want to be an elected official. If I was forced to do something in government, I probably would if it was a great offer and if everybody wants me to do it, but I don't really want to do it, okay? If the world gets nicer, maybe, okay? But it would have to be a heck of a lot nicer than it is now. What Donald Trump is doing is amazing. To be able to handle that much hatred, it's a big, big weight on you and your family. Not one that I'd really want to take. So, I don't really know what's going on. I don't have very many briefings. We did hear, however, that we're going to get a lot more briefings very soon. Briefings are going to come back, and I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited about the 3 days. I think, one of the things that QAnon said is that 75% of the sealed indictments, roughly speaking, were in the media. Some people are horrified when I said that, but bear in mind the media is using black magic and sorcery to manipulate our opinions. They've lied to us about so many things, and it's about time that we see some justice happen in the world. So I'm sure that when you find out about what these indictments are, that it's all going to make sense. It's all going to be very legal. It is not renditioning. It is not people being abducted in the night and secreted away and you never hear about it. This is going to be public trials. You're going to hear what the charges are and you're going to get to see what's going on. And probably some of the footage that they're going to air would include depositions in these secret military trials that have already happened with people like George W. Bush and Obama. I believe that's part of what you're going to see, of them confessing, and you're going to know that it's true. Okay? Confessing to what they've already been involved in, and to whatever degree they aided and abetted. The 3 days is probably going to involve, therefore, a lot of big tech, a lot of the entertainment industry, a lot of the financial system, a lot of the financial industry. So there'll probably be a lot of it in Chicago, a lot of it in New York, a lot of it in LA, a lot of it in San Francisco, other places. I don't really know, okay? All I know is that they want to try to get it done within 3 days. These soldiers will probably be working 24-hour shifts. Nobody's going to be sleeping. They're going to be probably having to take amphetamines in order to keep working, but they're going to get it done, and they're going to get it done in 3 days. Hopefully they'll let people sleep, because as one of the insiders told me, sleep is a weapon. You're not effective if you don't get any sleep. So I hope they don't just keep them amped up on meth for 3 days, and they have some shifts in this work. But we will, in our prayer here, be sending these guys our best prayers and good wishes once again that this mission will be a success. Let's go on to the next question. I talked about the highly relevant dream that I had this morning, which seems to give us some insight that this is not going to happen right away. Whatever the screaming lady is who comes out with her weird, straight, long hair, parted down the middle black, and her weird white dress, that is a metaphor. That is not literally true, okay? But it's a metaphor of some other thing that's going to freak people out that hasn't happened yet, that we're probably still going to have to see before the 3 days, and that's just dream briefings. So I don't know what the hell it means, but we'll find out soon enough. Okay, can you explain the difference between ascending to fourth density versus the fifth dimension, and what is the fourth dimension? Okay, this is a very standard law of one oriented question. And again, I believe the law of one is the most reputable extraterrestrial communication we've ever had. It's literally the equivalent of like the Roswell crash in a chunk of information that we can all analyze. I've found hundreds of scientific things in there that were not proven at the time it came through, 1981 to 1983, which I was subsequently able to verify with data that hadn't even been generated in the early 1980s, okay? So bearing all that in mind, this concept of density is interesting, because the law of one says, yes, it's like an alternate plane of existence, but it's not a dimension per se. So bear in mind that dimensions refer to length, width, and height. They are simply mathematical terms to define what it means to be in space with all this space. Let's go to this shot here. All this space around us, I can use my hands, right? All this space around us. This is a dimension. This is length, width and height, okay? So you have those three dimensions, and then they try to say in some of these like superstring theories that you make this orthogonal rotation into a higher dimension. There's some kind of 90-degree turn. Well, wait a minute. You can't make a 90-degree turn into a higher dimension. You're always going to be in three dimensions. So the law of one says no, dimensions are just dimensions. They just measure space. Einstein said the fourth dimension was time, because Einstein posited that time only goes forward in one direction. That has since been refuted by a wide variety of great science, including one of my favorites, the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, which shows that the laws of physics work just as well if time goes backwards than if time goes forwards. In other words, you can manipulate that t variable in all these crazy equations. You can make it go backwards and all the equations still work. So time is not just linear. Time has 3 degrees of freedom to move in. Time is three-dimensional as well. This is one of the things they talk about in the law of one, derived from the science of Dr. Dewey Larson. Larsonian physics, okay? So you have 3 dimensions of space and 3 dimensions of time, and I talk all about this in my first book, The Source Field, which again is right here, just so that, you know, shameless self-promotion. Let's go back to the wide shot. I've showed you this before. These books kick ass. This was the first one I wrote, the most difficult one to write, over 1,000 academic references. The new one, Awakening the Dream, you're going to get a nice hardcover like this. You can pre-order it now. It's less than 20 bucks. And it'll get to you on June the 6th, and it's going to blow your freaking mind. So anyway, I've put this stuff out there for a long time. You got a whole elaborate discussion there about time-space and space-time, and what does that mean? But with densities, what does it actually refer to? It refers to the level of, if you will, intelligence that's in the 3 space around us. So they talk about first density in the law of one. First density is the elements, earth, air, fire, and water. And those elemental forces have a consciousness that is not localized. They are conscious, but there's no local focus. It says in the law of one that as water moves over earth and as fire burns water, changing it to steam, as these elements collide with each other, that they form life as we would think of it. And this includes everything from bacteria, plant cells, animal cells, all the way up to every type of life on Earth except humans. That's all second density. But of course, first density and second density are existing in a 3-dimensional space. Second density has a mass consciousness. They do not have individuation where they think of themselves as a separate being until and unless you get a pet, at which point your pets actually start to say, I want you to feed me, which is called individuation. At that point in the law of one, they are no longer what they would call a mind-body. They become a mind/body/spirit, which is the last step before you become human, which is a mind/body/spirit complex. So when an animal becomes a mind-body-spirit, according to the law of one, they will now return in their next life as a human being. And they've graduated, they've gone from second density to third density, they've become human in their next life. So that's a really great thing, actually. That's a very happy graduation. So if you have a pet, and that pet has a sense of self, it's probably going to come back in its next life as a human. Where's my big dodo? Well, she's around. Anyway, she'll be an interesting person when she comes back next time. She can be a little reactive, but you know, I'm sure she'll do just fine. Anyway, third density, they say in the law of one, is the choice between service to self or service to others. You can make either choice, but they just want you to decide. So please, if you're going to be evil and you're going to want to kill people, just do it all the way. That's what the law of one says. And guess what? If you do it, you're going to have horrific karma. You're going to pay out every last bit of what you do to other people. You are not exempt from the laws of karma. It's a really ignorant path for that reason. But these guys got a head start. They built a huge, huge global corporation, if you will, a global organization where they made all the money. They developed a secret space program. They do all these crazy, evil stuff, and they don't tell us what they really are. And now, finally, they are being opposed so we can take our planet back. Fourth density is the density of love. Fifth density is the density of light or wisdom. Sixth density is the density where love and light are fused together, where you see self and other are one. The law of one. Seventh density is timelessness and foreverness, where self and other are not seen, only the void, only the intelligent infinity. Okay? At that point, your sense of individual identity starts to ease, and you start to merge with intelligent infinity, and that's the last step you make before you return to the octave. So in fourth density, you learn the lessons of love. That's the heart chakra, and you're a very loving person, but you lack wisdom. Even these higher beings, that's the way they are. Fifth density, you gain the wisdom, but you can become too involved in producing wisdom without really unifying it with love. So it's only at sixth density level, the brow chakra, where love and wisdom are unified, and now you're on a path where you are actually giving people your life as a commitment to spiritual service. So if you're going to try to hit sixth density in this life here on Earth, it's basically a requirement that you've consecrated your life in service to others. I've done that. Elizabeth has done that. You might have done that too. A lot of people are now able to work from home. This is one of the really great aspects of this shut-in, is how many people didn't realize they could work from home and now they realize they can, and it's kind of goading you forward to what's going to actually be a much better life, because we don't really need to go to offices. People can telework, they can telecommute, they can teleconference, and that's a great thing. So, you know, we have a lot to look forward to here. So that's just a basic breakdown on the densities. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in the upcoming class. If you've already signed up for that, thank you. If you haven't signed up for our class, there's still time to get in. We're starting it in about a little over a week, like a week and a half, so it's not very far away. And I will be giving you all spiritual information. We're not even going to get into the bug. It's going to be just heavy-duty spiritual downloads that you need to make you better equipped for how to handle this thing, how to get your spiritual guidance, get direct downloads from your higher self, so you know what your instructions are, what your marching orders are, what you need to be doing to best be of service. And I realized in light of this that I need to design a whole class around that. It's going to be radically different than the previous class with a lot of new information, lots of slides, lots of content. I can't wait for it. And it's the same price as typical conferences, but way more information than you normally get from me at a conference. Okay. What is the best way to get my pineal gland to activate and operate as it should? Okay, that's a great question. So the pineal gland, as I was saying in a previous show, is this third eye. It actually is wired into the visual cortex of your brain. It has retinal cells inside, and what are they looking at? An area of water. The area of water has DMT crystals in it, and I talked about how DMT crystals are piezochromatic, meaning that they can be vibrated by electromagnetic fields and release colored photons of all the different colors of the rainbow. So you can get full color visions from your soul, which is flying around, and then a lot of people, when they have an OBE, they see the silver cord. That's the connection between your soul and your physical body, and many OBE experiencers say that the silver cord is connected to their third eye. Well, yeah, you can go out and explore, but you're tethered to your body, and anything that you see with that soul body goes through the silver cord. The photons actually travel through. They go inside your pineal gland once it's activated, which is taking place in darkness. We'll get into that in a minute. You activate your pineal gland, and then your retinal cells will actually see the stuff that your soul is seeing, because these DMT crystals vibrate it. Then those signals are sent into your visual cortex, and you have to learn. That's one of the things I'm going to teach you in the class. Learn how to identify when your third eye is seeing something. What does it look like? How do you measure it? How do you see? And one of the secrets I'll give you right now is that it comes in fleeting snapshots. When you start to get visions from your third eye, they are not going to last very long. They go very quickly. So it's a fast thing. And so little bursts of visual information actually are very important. And that's why you want to document them. This is what remote viewers start doing before they get the full contact with the target. Now, here's another thing. Your pineal gland requires that you have a free amount of water in there in order for it to work. So when you get the typical Western diet, you start to get pineal calcification, okay? What does that mean? That means that calcium deposits are building up inside your pineal gland, and almost, in some cases, almost all of the water is consumed by calcium deposits. Now, if it gets to the point where it's almost all the water in your pineal gland, you will start to have physical problems. You'll get degenerative diseases like Parkinson's disease. That is associated with pineal calcification. Okay? Your nerves will start to break down, because there's other things the pineal gland regulates as well. So, the deep state people know this. They know that your pineal gland is the secret to your third eye, and they're trying to suppress its functionality. Now, how do they do that? Well, one of the answers is that they will give you wheat. So I'm going to put it right out there right now. Wheat products, because when it's, even if it's whole wheat, right? It's the additives that they've made to the wheat that bind everything up. They bind into your colon. All the times that your colon twists, the wheat gets stuck in there. So even if you're a vegan, I don't recommend eating whole wheat at all. Just eat other types of grains besides wheat or corn, or soy for that matter, which is sad because vegans love their soy burgers and their soy hot dogs. Well, soy is terrible, okay? These are weaponized foods. You don't want to put them in your body. You can get natural stuff, and if you want to be vegetarian, you can still eat eggs, of course. And that's, a lot of vegetarians make that compromise. You'll get a lot of goodness out of the eggs, especially if the yolks are dark orange. So this is very, very important, okay? The whole wheat and regular white especially is very bad. Refined sugar is very bad for the pineal gland. You will definitely get buildup in your pineal gland if you're eating a lot of sugar. That is going to happen. Another thing that's very bad is all of the halides. The halide family refers to fluoride, chlorine, all that kind of stuff. So if you are drinking water that is not purified, you're getting that into your body. If you take showers without using the shower filter, that can affect you. It's not a big deal, okay? So don't freak out about that one. It's not terrible if you're taking showers without the shower filter. I know you might not have one right now. That's okay. It's not a big deal. It's much more about what you actually ingest with your mouth, okay? So you want to be really, really careful to avoid, like, for example, I don't ever use fluoridated toothpaste. So Colgate, Crest, all that kind of stuff, never. I've been using the Indian toothpaste Oromir for 20 years and I didn't have any cavities. I did have to have, veneer work done. As I said before, I had chewed off all the enamel on my molars, and they showed me this on photographs that it was all dentin exposed, which is why I couldn't eat nuts without pain. So I did have to have my teeth overhauled for my own health, but it's because when you take on the cabal, you start grinding your teeth at night and you grind off your enamel. So, the new veneers look great, but it was an enormous amount of pain. But I am happy to report that I didn't have cavities, and I was using only this health food store toothpaste. So the whole idea that you must have fluoridated toothpaste, I'm living proof that wasn't true for me. So don't believe that, because the fluoride is your enemy. It gets in your pineal gland. Now, we can talk about the Weston Price material. And Weston Price was the dentist who went through and went to all these indigenous cultures where they didn't have Western food, and they only ate the indigenous food that they had been eating for 10,000 years. And in all those cases, he had less than 1 cavity per 1,000 teeth. Everybody had great teeth. Everybody had no crooked teeth. They didn't break bones. They didn't get heart disease. They didn't get diabetes. They didn't get cancer. They wouldn't break bones when they fell. They were psychic, and they lived a really long time. And Pete Peterson was the one who said that the U.S. government, in its covert nasty elements, decided that if Weston Price's research was known to people on a large-scale level, that it would collapse the U.S. economy because Social Security would be overwhelmed with people who were living too long and collecting benefits for too long. So they stuffed that data. Now, if you are a meat eater, there's lots of options, because basically what Weston Price discovered is that animal protein has this substance in it called Activator X, okay? Activator X, whatever the hell that stuff is, we don't know if it's really a chemical, we don't know if it's a series of chemicals, we don't know if it has some kind of energetic quality, but we do know that it shows up in certain types of animal protein. There is a way around this, excuse me, there is a way around this if you're a vegetarian, and that's to eat eggs, okay? If you don't do that, then you're not taking full advantage of the possibility of decalcifying your pineal gland, because the best way to decalcify your pineal gland is Activator X. If you're a vegetarian, you can do it with eggs, and you want to find whatever eggs you have available to you. Actually, if you can find any eggs right now, congratulations, because they're in very, very short supply. Everybody's been stockpiling eggs. But if you can find the eggs that have the dark orange yolks, that has way more Activator X in it than if they have light yellow yolks. That's your best bet if you're a vegetarian. And we had found this company called Happy Egg Farms, and if you buy the blue ones, the blue eggs, they had 2 types of chickens that were in there. One of them was called Spotted Leg Bar, and I forget what the other one was, but they're heirloom eggs. They have weird shells. Some of them are blue, some of them are brown with spots. The shell is hard to crack. You got to crack it a lot harder. You open it up, and it's orange, dark orange yolk. That is loaded with Activator X, okay? That was the only types of eggs I'd be eating. If you are a meat eater, it's really good to try to get the most ethical meat possible. Now, I do not support, and I never have supported, factory farming, slaughterhouses, all that kind of crazy stuff. There is a way to invest your money into companies that treat animals as ethically as possible. Now, vegans get all upset about this. I'm sure there's a tidal wave of negative comments right now from people who are vegans. But again, you're never, I'm sorry, this is true, you're never going to convince people not to eat meat. It's never going to happen. Nothing that you say is going to convince anybody. So the best thing that you can do, actually, is to try to get the people who are going to eat meat, even if you hate it, to support things that treat animals ethically. Let them live out in the field their whole life. Don't leave them in a factory. Let them go out and run around in the pasture. Don't give them antibiotics. Don't give them drugs. Don't give them steroids, right? So almost exclusively, the meat that I eat is buffalo, bison, because bison are required by federal law that they cannot be manipulated, exploited, abused, poisoned, etc. They don't get antibiotics. They don't get steroids. They're out there in the wild, and that's the way they live their whole lives, okay? So when you get into that kind of stuff, when you get into the really, really nicely done proteins that are ethically raised, they are very high in activator X. So if you eat bison on a regular basis, it's very high in activator X. Now, I remember getting a live blood analysis, and you know, he's looking at like how many red blood cells do you have, how many white blood cells do you have, and because I was eating all the bison all the time, I had this gigantic amount of red blood cells. He actually said it was almost too much. So I could bleed out a lot, and all the other red blood cells would quickly fill up as my body immediately generates plasma, and I'd be fine. Okay, when I was a vegan and I gave blood for a VD test, which thankfully I came out clean, I had no VD, thank you very much, but I drew a little bit of blood and I passed out, and I was on this cold tile bathroom floor with my shirt off trying to, you know, come back to life just from giving a little vial of blood because I was so weak. So there's some haters out there that have leaked some pictures of me where I look like I came out of a concentration camp. My face is extremely gaunt and thin. I have very, very dark circles under my eyes, and my skin is essentially white. That was what veganism did to me after 7 years. I did not have a choice. I had my job telling me that I was mentally ill, that I needed to get therapy, that I had an eating disorder. I said, well, I have a healthy diet. I'm a vegan, you know, but it wasn't healthy because my body wasn't healthy. So if I could do the vegan diet, I would, but I can't. My body doesn't support it, and therefore, again, I'm sorry if you don't like it. However, here's another thing. Let's say you're a vegetarian. There is one other thing you can do. You can get ghee. This is very, very important. Weston Price's research found out that you can get ghee, which is clarified butter, and specifically, he said that the ghee should be coming from cows that eat fast growing wild grass, meaning they're not factory farmed, but they're wild raised cows. And there are companies that sell that ghee, and you want to look at the ghee inside the bottle, and you want to look at how dark it is. And again, the closer it goes towards being a kind of an orangey yellow, especially if you could actually find orange ghee, which is very rare, and look on the bottle just to make sure they're not adding, like, you know, saffron or other things that cause redness to occur, like turmeric, right? They could add turmeric to it. As long as they're not adding turmeric or anything like that, if you find that butter, that ghee, that's got that dark color, you buy it because you can cook with it. It's a great cooking oil. It can get really hot without smoking, unlike olive oil, which is really bad. It smokes at a very low temperature and it goes rancid as soon as it starts smoking. The ghee will decalcify your pineal gland. So just to review, okay, if you do eat meat, you want to keep it as ethical as possible. The better those animals are raised, the more activator X they're going to have. Fish liver is one of the best things. Fish liver oil has a lot of activator X in it, and there were certain types of fish that Weston Price specifically mentioned, like the rat fish. There is a skate liver oil product that's out there that appears to be good. I don't get any commissions on it, but I have sold it at my conferences before. From Green Pasture, they have something called skate liver oil. Fermented skate liver oil, that's one of the things you can do. Be advised that it will change your breath in a negative way if you're in a relationship, so you should probably both be doing it then. The ghee is great. The eggs with the dark orange yolks are great, and that's really your main stuff, okay? It's not a whole complicated thing. You just add these into your diet so you can cook the eggs with the ghee and have that be one of your meals for the day. The Activator X only comes through animal proteins, so that's really important, but that is, you know, he did find that you could reverse pineal calcification with that. And of course, the best quality water, reverse osmosis with alkaline added in. If you get reverse osmosis by itself, it's not very good. Distilled water by itself will actually screw you up as well by demineralizing your body, which you don't want. But again, Activator X is the main key for pineal decalcification. And another thing also, of course, is proper hydration. If you don't drink enough water, you're going to have a problem. And so we can cut to this shot. Here's my dog right here. She just comes around sometimes, and that's the big killer. You know, she's you got to have a dangerous dog if you do this business, because we don't want somebody showing up uninvited to do their wet works or whatever the hell they would do. Anyway, let's have another question. I'm going to keep this to 2.5 hours more or less. How do I help others navigate into the Great Awakening? Well, that's a great question. Look, this is a team effort. We all are working together on this. We're all pulling together and pooling our resources and figuring out how to get this information out there. And remember, what did we learn from complexity theory? One entity within the system can transform the entire system around itself, and the outcome is not predictable beforehand by anyone. No matter how much you try to contrive the outcome, you really can't. So right now, what I advise is give people information in a way that doesn't create fear. And also, please, as I always tell you, follow the rule of 10%. In other words, if you have somebody who is ready to wake up, give them 10% of whatever it is that you want to say, even if it's only 10% of one topic. Give them 10%. Yes, he touched his face. Oh my God, dude, I'm already immune to COVID. I definitely kicked that thing in the ass. So yeah, I'll touch my face. This is ridiculous, okay? I'm not sick. I haven't been sick. I had, you know, a month where I had to sleep for 10 hours a day. Didn't even have any body aches. I was just fatigued and it was over, okay? So I am going to itch my nose because it's itching like hell right now. I don't know why. And I got the girly right there. It's the whole situation. 10%. Don't give them everything that you want to say. Let's get that hair looking right. This, you know, you got to make do with what you got. And this isn't much, so I'm just going to fluff this stuff up somehow. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Give them 10% of what you want to say, and then stop and let them say something. If you do the crazy monologue, it's never going to work. You got to stop, say 10%, let them talk, and then give them 10% more, and then let them talk and give them 10% more. And I did this one time when I was staying at Moraine Lake in Canada. I had this family come up. They didn't know anything about conspiracy theory. They said, well, you know, who are you? What are you doing? Oh my God, here's the dreaded 4 words. What do you do? I never like that question if I get that out in the wild, because then it opens up all this stuff and I have to start talking, and the next thing you know, it's a lecture and everybody's crowding around me and listening to me. That's happened so many times, and it's not necessarily cool if you're just trying to get to the bathroom, okay? Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not cool. Depends on how I feel. Anyway, this time it was cool. And people who didn't know anything about my subjects, I was able to talk them through the whole thing by just giving them a little bit and then letting them respond. And that, well, you know, that's funny. That reminds me of something I saw. And I'm like, yeah, you know, that's interesting. And what about this? And wow, that's interesting. And that reminds me of this. And yeah, well, what about this? Next thing you know, within about an hour, I'd told them everything, like the whole platform that I talk about. And they were able to understand it. So I would say you don't have a lack of information. It's just about delivery, and the way to deliver it is in small doses, and you got to have that ability to hold your tongue and let them process. And as long as you do that, you'll be fine. That's the best way to help others navigate. Next question. What is going to happen to those who don't know, those who want to stay in programming? Well, in this particular case, if you listen to what QAnon is saying, this is not an option. Awakening is not going to be an option. Everybody is going to learn what really happened, what our planet was, who was running it, how evil they really were, what they were really trying to do, that they did want to kill a bunch of people, that they were practicing Luciferian Satanism, they were practicing human sacrifice, they were practicing blood drinking, they were creating wars where they owned both sides to try to reduce population, to try to create a unification into a one world order. We're going to learn all this stuff, so there's going to be no escape. You're not going to be able to think that this wasn't true, and there's nothing you can do to put the genie back in the bottle. So this plan, you know, they say trust the plan. Q says trust the plan, and I do. So you got to understand the magnitude of what's coming. You got to understand the magnitude of the global televised sit-down, as Q said in the previous show. I showed you that slide. The global televised sit-down, where you find out that these people are on trial. You find out that they are testifying in their own words. Yes, I was involved in this. Yes, I was doing this. Yes, we thought we were saving the planet because yes, we thought there were too many people and we had to attack population numbers. You're going to find out that COVID was an artificial virus. You're going to find out that it was smuggled in through the Harvard University professor Charles Lieber and his students. All that stuff is coming out. That's why I showed you that article where they're already talking about biological smuggling. They're giving you different cases, but then they're saying, well, it was just an accident and these guys didn't really know what they were doing and it was just the result of normal viruses that appeared out of biological samples, and these guys just found it and tested it and kept it, and they, you know, they weren't trying to do anything evil per se. Okay, I don't agree with that at all. That's not really what's happening. So what's going to happen to those who don't know, those who want to stay in their programming? You can't stay in programming. This is going to be a global awakening. So everybody's going to go through this. It's really about how will people respond to the truth. So if you have family members who are not ready for this, they're going to be the ones who have to throw up. They're going to be the ones who have to go through the really, really dark night of the soul, because this is a betrayal. I call it the man in the bedroom effect, right? It's like walking in on your partner who you've trusted and loved and you never thought you would be betrayed, and there's that moment where you look and there they are in the bed with somebody else, okay? I've never done that to anyone. I never would. People are always trying to dig up dirt on me. There's nothing like that to find. So I'm only speaking in hypotheticals here. But if hypothetically you walked in on that, right? What we've done, studied it from people that have had this happen to them, the first reaction is denial. That can't be a man in bed with my wife. That can't be real. I'm not seeing this. And people do a double take, right? Their head goes back. Then the next thing that happens is anger. They get very, very angry because they realize, oh my God, I've been betrayed, I've been lied to, and this is the proof. It's right in front of my face. So there's going to be a lot of people who get really, really angry because our leaders are worshipped as if they were like our parents or even like God, you know? So when you find out what's really going on, it's going to be really rough. So the people who are not prepared for this thing, they're going to learn a lot of dark stuff and they're going to be very, very upset. And that's really where your help is going to be necessary to try to reach out to them and help them put this thing together. Next question. How does the ascension affect our human body? What happens to our body when we ascend into the light body? Well, okay, so the law of one does describe that there is a transitional body between third and fourth density, that it doesn't happen all at once, that your third density body is transformed. And again, think about that bacteria, Caenorhabditis elegans. You drop it into lactose, and in one generation, it evolves its mouth parts to digest lactose. That's within one lifetime, right? So therefore, our bodies are going to be evolving in ways that we can't necessarily visually see, but will lead to things like telekinesis, telepathy, that kind of stuff will start to happen. Seeing ghosts, perhaps. I do believe there are waves of ascension, that we're going through the first wave now, which is a collective awakening. After this thing happens and the 3 days are over and they start giving us the mass arrests and they start showing us the tribunals, you're still going to be the same. You're not going to be levitating the, things, objects around you. You're not going to be reading people's minds. But that creates the possibility for those things to start to happen. There appear to be later waves of ascension, which hopefully, if we can use this single, fine, strong moment of inspiration worldwide, we don't have to have earth changes. Everybody gets to go through this. And this is a brilliant opportunity for that to happen. The way this whole thing is played out, with everybody being at home and everybody's going to watch the mass arrests, we actually could be on that optimum timeline where we don't have to have earth changes. If we do have earth changes, then there will be people all getting ushered off the planet. Everybody except the most evil people will get the rescue plan. Even the people who aren't going to ascend still get rescued if it goes down this way. That'll be pretty exciting. That's like an ascension itself, even if you don't end up turning into a light body. But it's only after this sort of solar energy release, whether it causes earth changes or not, that you start to get your light body activation based on all these different prophecies from many different religions, the Quran, the Bible, it's everywhere, okay? They all talk about this. So, and 33 other ancient traditions as well, because there's 35 in total that did this. So when you get the light body, you will probably within a relatively short time be able to levitate, you'll be able to fly, you'll be able to read people's minds, you'll know about your past lives, you'll remember them. It's a very, very amazing thing. You'll communicate telepathically, you won't need to use your mouth. These skills will take time to develop, but I think the ET souls, the angelic souls, they will probably be able to remember these abilities and use them almost immediately. So there's stages to this ascension. It doesn't happen all at once, but we're going through the first Great Awakening right now, and I'm very excited about it. So I could go on and on with this, but we're already at 2 hours and 45 minutes. How can I be more grounded when I lucid dream? I seem to be less intelligent when I'm doing it, but how can I control that? Unfortunately, I hate to burst your bubble, the answer is you can't. When you're in a lucid dream, you do not have your full conscious faculties. So kudos to you for noticing that. In my new class, I am going to go through all of the protocols of lucid dreaming, how to do it, how to identify it. That's the Great Awakening class. By no means do I want to infringe on Q's Great Awakening. I just want my class, which is like a typical conference, but you can watch it at home and pay for it that way, to be another example of that. Okay, so lucid dreaming does involve your dreaming self, and your dreaming self does not have all of your waking mind's resources, so you're not going to be able to think as clearly, you're not going to remember all the things that you would normally know, and you're going to be operating at a deficit, but you can still get a lot of really, really amazing stuff going when you have a lucid dream. And we'll talk to you in the class about how to do that. Okay, a lot of people are asking about the class. We had many, many iterations of this question. How does this new program differ from last year's program? The answer is 100%, okay? So if you saw the other one and you saw what I was talking about, probably hardly any of that stuff is going to be repeated because remember, when I write a book, it's a big frickin' deal. There's a lot that gets crammed into it. If you don't want to take the class, if you can't afford it or you don't want to do it, I would still highly recommend you buy Awakening in the Dream as a pre-order. It's like $20 or something, and you get the beautiful hardcover book. This helps our efforts. So like, I can do these hours and hours of free videos, but we have to pay for it somehow. So please don't troll me for having a business. We're not becoming fabulously wealthy from this, but it does help us to do what we need to do. So how is the new program different? We're going to talk about the Great Pyramid. We're going to talk about the Great Pyramid timeline. We're going to identify the different types of beings that you can connect with. You can find out what they look like, how to connect with them, how they're trying to communicate with you, how to talk back to them. You're going to learn how to use your dreams as a source of guidance. I'm going to hopefully train you to the point where any dream that you have, you'll be able to understand what it means. You'll have the tools to decipher it. I'm going to give you plenty of examples of how this works. I'm going to have you send your dreams in. I'll be analyzing your dreams as part of the curriculum. We have all kinds of really interesting stuff on the grays and what do they represent, and are they in the Bible? Are they mentioned in the Bible? What is their role in all of this? We're going to talk about the Anshar, the elders, the midwayers, these beings in white robes with whitish or blonde hair, and what do they represent? And a lot of new stuff that you've never seen before, even if you've watched all the Corey Good stuff, all the things that I've ever done with him. I got some wonderful new stuff that will blow you away in terms of how much it validates what Corey is saying. We're going to talk about some new insider testimony on the secret space program. We're going to talk more about the Stargate systems and how those work. It's going to be a whole new thing, but again, the real focus is on your personal development, getting you equipped to handle this ascension so that you can pass with flying colors. All right. Can we collectively shift the field by group meditations? Well, absolutely. We already showed that with the graph showing how the Schumann resonance, and I'll show that again in a minute, got up so high. And we're going to do another group meditation here in just a minute, so I can hopefully keep this to 3 hours. So yes, we can collectively shift the field, absolutely, and we're about to do that. Who are the guest expert faculty in the Great Awakening course? Okay. I have contacted the people who I would like to have speaking in it. And right now, I have a definite confirmation from Dr. Glenn Ryan. He's the DNA scientist who showed that love can transform the DNA molecule. I definitely have a confirmation from Sperry Andrews, and he has done some really amazing stuff on consciousness science and how to evolve your consciousness and the science behind that. He's got some really, really amazing insights into the Cabal, into the global initiation that we're going through. Sperry is an amazing intellect. I love talking to him. Danian Brinkley has definitely confirmed he's going to be involved in it. We have some pre-taped stuff from him if we need to use it, but hopefully we'll get him back out here. We can talk to him in person. His health is very fragile right now. His blood pressure is like 75 over 45 or something, so he's been getting these stem cell treatments into his heart to try to boost his heart function. We really hope Danian is going to pull through and get a little more time here, but he is right on the edge right now. And so we're going to send love to him in the meditation, okay? But Danian will be on there. I have another scholar who I've contacted, and if he's watching this, he knows who he is. No, I'm not going to ask you to talk about the Cabal. That's not what it is. And yes, we're going to talk about the Law of One, so I hope he'll do it, but I don't want to say his name until we've definitely confirmed. Sorry I haven't written you back. I have a couple other people I've asked, and we're just waiting to hear back from them or try to get through the right channels. So we're going to have guest faculty, and again, that won't cut in with your lecture time. It's an enormous amount of material for the cost, much better actually than a regular conference in terms of all you get. And the 3 modules that my wife is going to do are separate from my 5, each of which I end up talking 2 to 4 hours, you know, so it's a lot of stuff. All right. What is your #1 reason for believing in the Great Awakening? I actually need to stop and think about that one for a minute. What is the #1 reason for believing in the Great Awakening? The #1 reason I would have to say is that I believe in an intelligent universal creator. I believe in God, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I believe in intelligent infinity. I believe that this is a conscious, sentient universe, and I believe that the universe speaks to us when we understand how to decipher it through synchronicity, through dreams, and ultimately through direct telepathy. And I'm going to be showing you in the class how I do that, how to listen to your third eye, how to watch what your third eye is showing you, how to tune into it, how to slow it down so that it's not just a snapshot, but you can start to pay longer attention to the images that your third eye is sending into your visual cortex. But ultimately, I believe this is a good universe. It is not an evil universe. Beings like Jesus and Buddha told us that love is the key. I believe that's true, that loving consciousness is the energy of the universe, and that ultimately this negative stuff that we're going through right now is all authorized as part of our Great Awakening. The beings are not going to let them do a 5G meltdown. They're not going to let them do a nuclear war. They're not going to let them blow up the whole planet. This thing is a safe, contained process that we're going through that gives people the opportunity for solitude so they can be home. Okay? So here's another one. My family are closed to the possibilities. Why are they so closed, and what can I do to assist them? This causes no end of conflict, concern, confusion, and distraction. Well, we already talked about this with the process. As I said, give them only 10% at a time. Whoever has been confused is not going to have that luxury anymore after the world televised sit-down, as the president is calling it in the QAnon stuff. You're going to know. So at that point, again, the key is coaching them through this. Up until then, I don't know if they're going to listen to you or not, honestly. Just do the rule of 10% and we'll try. Why do so many people have to suffer before we awaken? Unfortunately, suffering, or what they call catalyst in the Law of One, is what cracks the shell that we build around our hearts. Okay? It's only by cracking that shell that we build around our hearts that we start to learn to love one another. So suffering is only meted out by your soul to the degree necessary to awaken you to the importance of living in a loving universe, and that love is the agenda and love is what you're here to spread and to promote. And that's it. That's the way it works. So you don't have to give up your religion. You don't have to become something different. This is definitely not a cult. I'm not a cult leader. I don't have anybody that comes to meet with me. It's just not true, okay? But there are cool spiritual teachings that I'm trying to share with you that you can add in with your own tools, and you can become your own master. You can become the teacher and help people through this thing by just adding the knowledge and information that you have. So why do people have to suffer? Well, if you're not existing in a state of loving kindness as your general operating system, then you're going to keep getting thumped by the universe until you learn to be there. And that's one of the basic teachings of the law of one. You will keep getting moved until you stay in a loving consciousness state. And movement, ultimately, you need to see it as just an experience and not have any emotional attachment to it. So ideally, you could get to the point where you're a public figure like me, and you have lots of people hating you like me, and you're not offended, and you're not ultimately affected, okay? In certain cases, people are so disruptive that we still now have had to hire a full-time attorney and prepare some legal actions that haven't come out yet, but that's a very rare example when somebody just pushes the boundary way, way too far. And even then, if they still cease and desist, we might listen. It's not like we're absolutely going to press charges. But for God's sake, just give us a break. You know, we're doing the best we can. There's nothing to expose. This is not a cult, and we haven't done anything wrong. All right. Besides meditation, what is essential to be practicing in these times of change? I really think the most important thing right now is service to others, you know? Try to get people awakened, educate yourself, take this time of solitude to read books, to watch the videos you want to watch, to study the things you want to study. Building your knowledge is a great thing to be doing right now, and reaching out to other people and helping people, doing what you can to dissolve fear, to build trust, to build love, to build happiness, all that stuff is very good. How can I find my life's purpose in this emerging paradigm? Well, I like to go along with what Joseph Campbell always said, which is follow your bliss. If this is what you're the most passionate about, it's very closely related to your life's purpose. And then the key is, how do you merge your bliss with something that will actually generate income? And that's the big clue. And I will be talking about some spiritual business principles during our Great Awakening class as well, because now with everybody shifting to working from home, there's a huge opportunity now for more people to do that, and I will be sharing with you some of those principles in the class, definitely. That's going to happen. Okay, now we have this question that came in from Danny and Brinkley himself. Do you think Danny and Brinkley is a reptilian sent to Earth from hell? And the answer is no. Danian is actually a great friend. He's a remarkable guy. And this segues into our next question. This is his classic offbeat sense of humor he has. This is his next question. Danian Brinkley in Saved by the Light, Chapter 5, which is titled Boxes of Knowledge, published in 1994, said that the battle for the future of humanity would be fought in healthcare. Is this now a prophetic glimpse into our current reality? So this is one of the things, I've had some long conversations with Daniel about this, because in his first near-death experience in the 1970s, he saw these colorful beings of light that didn't have faces. They were just like rainbow-colored beings with, you know, all this light, and they brought forward what he said were like almost like laptop computers. And they opened up, and then there were these visions of the future in there. And so when you go in and you read his classic Saved by the Light, which has now had like 21 million copies that he's sold or something, it's unbelievable, right? It's one of the, I mean, his story is incredible. You could never do that now. Books are almost a dead-end business, basically. You know, I'm only doing it really because I like to get out the message, but in terms of profitability, it's not profitable to work on a book. It's just way too much time. Way too much time for what you get out of it. Anyway, he had these boxes of knowledge that were shown to him by these beings, and the prophecies that were in Saved by the Light in 1994, many of them have come true. And when we were first getting through this mass shutdown, he was like, well, David, and I could even use my Danian voice, well, David, I don't understand it. The boxes of knowledge never showed me this stupid pandemic. Well, as time went on and we kept talking, he realized, wait a minute. And I remembered him saying this over and over again. One of the key things that he kept saying from that visionary experience is, the battle for the future of humanity will be fought in healthcare. And so now, look at what's happening. The whole battle for the future of humanity, whether we're even going to live as planet Earth or not, is being fought in the healthcare system. Do we have enough masks? Do we have enough ventilators? Do we have enough hospitals? Do we have enough beds? Can we even provide burial for the people, right? The battle for the future of humanity is going to be fought in healthcare. So that's a really cool thing where now it looks as if, yes, once again, he's got more hits than the Italian mafia. Psychic hits, that is. And he's nailing these things because, wow, I've been talking to Danny and I've known him for almost 20 years. That's been one of his things he says at almost every show. The battle for the future of humanity will be fought in healthcare. And now it seems like the beings were right. And again, I had prophecies in the 1990s that were talking all about what we're going through now and saying that we're all going to be fine. So I'm very, very confident about a positive future. So now I'd like to do another mass meditation. We are now 3 hours in. How long have we been broadcasting exactly? What does it say?
Exactly 3 hours.
Exactly 3 hours. All right.
26,000 people.
So, and we have my lovely and delicious wife, Elizabeth. I know you're jealous. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did pick a really, really good one. That's just how I go. You know, you had any choice of anybody you could want, and I picked Elizabeth. Believe me, I sorted through many to get there. You know, not that I tasted the product per se. Let's just not.
Dig yourself out of it.
Whatever, you know? Okay. So let's frame up this shot because she's going to be over on those bowls, and I'm going to be, you know, I got to think about blocking you guys. I'm a filmmaker here, all right? Okay. Now, do I have any interference on the microphone when I do this? Is it scratchy at all? Okay, great. And I'll give you that Schumann resonance graph. We can cut to that a little bit if you want. That is what happened the last time we did this. The line that you see up near the top, the green line, the thickest green line all the way across, that's the normal Schumann resonance of 7.8 hertz. But now, look at what happened when we were all meditating. Look at the enormous increase in the Earth's electromagnetic activity. That is caused by us. So now, as you sit with me here and you close your eyes, I just ask that you let yourself breathe very deeply, such that you become ever more deeply relaxed. I invite you to allow your breathing to deepen, to slow down, such that all of your burdens and all of your grief just eases away. And you become deeper and deeper into your own soul. You may notice how relaxed you are. And that's good. Doesn't it feel nice to just let yourself go? To just let yourself relax? Doesn't it feel nice as you go deeper and deeper into yourself? Deeper and deeper into your own soul. And you feel a warmth, a softness. I invite you to notice how your brainwave activity is becoming slow and regular as you keep breathing deeply. Your thoughts are becoming more organized, not so restless, not so chaotic. deeply focused, deeply relaxed. All of this available to you in the here and now. Letting yourself breathe however you want. That was a good one. Let yourself just cut those ropes, all those tethers to negative emotions, to obligation, to those who are trying to extract anger and fear from you, to make you upset, fearful, anxious. Just cut those cords and let yourself glide back to a feeling of pure, deep relaxation. So deeply within you, so much a part of yourself, that you can never really go back to the way you were. You're changing, you're evolving, you're becoming something new. You are awakening to the grand visage of intelligent infinity, the warmth and the majesty of a loving Creator, the Father, Mother, God that has always had your back, always been looking out for you. And there may be times in your life as you go deeper and deeper into a state of pure relaxation, feeling ever more deeply relaxed. You may want to think about some times in your life where a person was not kind to you, where you were treated very poorly. You were treated as if you didn't matter, as if you were not worthy of love and respect. You were treated as if your thoughts and your opinions were irrelevant. You were laughed at, insulted, shamed, disrespected, violated, raped, abused, perhaps even tortured with violence or the threat of violence. Ever more deeply relaxed, ever more deeply at peace, as you observe that these things happened to you, but you don't need to affiliate yourself with the emotions that you used to attach to these things. For can you not see, as you breathe so deeply now, and as you're so deeply relaxed, can you not see the significance of this moment, this purity in the now that you are feeling as you breathe, as you relax? Can you not see the gorgeousness, the beauty of this moment, the purity of love? It may just be that in this state of deep relaxation and peace, that you find out who and what you really are. Maybe you start to explore the idea that you are this awareness that is now thinking with such clarity and such peace. You are that intelligence. You are that creator, that universal force. And a perfect holographic version of that creator is you. When you are in this awareness, when you are in this meditative peace. That is the truth of your soul. It is the truth of your being. We have the scientific proof, it's already been proven. But we still have to allow it to be real by relaxing and easing away all those stresses and pains and tensions and fears. I invite you to contemplate how much this is your true self, how you are this loving thought that made the universe. And at that level, you cannot be threatened. Love cannot be challenged. Love cannot be destroyed. Love cannot be overthrown. It is forever, and it is everywhere. Without time, without space, without form. An everlasting awareness, an everlasting thought. So as you now look back on any and every person who may have been unkind to you, who treated you as being less than perfect, less than fully worthy of every kindness and love in the universe, I just ask that you realize that that never threatened you, because you are immortal. You will walk in these shoes, you will walk in other shoes. You will continue for all eternity as a conscious being. Your awareness cannot end. You cannot really die. You only change into something new and exciting. And therefore, when someone doesn't see you that way, you can just forgive them. And I ask you to breathe in forgiveness. And as you exhale, I ask that you exhale forgiveness. And reflect on how in the Law of One series it says that in forgiveness lies the stoppage of the wheel of karma. In forgiveness is the answer that prevents you from having to suffer ever again. And if we as a world could learn to forgive one another, even those we dislike the most, then we just might not need any other turbulence. This global bottom that we've hit right now may be enough. We may not need more earth changes if enough of us simply learn to love. The earth can transition peacefully without earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. And you can help by looking into the face of the person who hurt you the most. If you choose to do this, I invite you. Look at the face of the person who hurt you the most. Maybe there's more than one. I invite you, if you so choose, to call them up now. Look at them. Look at who has hurt you the most. And understand that they were working from confusion. They didn't see the big picture. They didn't understand the real nature of who they are as a being of infinite love. That whatever they got so upset about is really not that important. Because we're all going back to this infinite loving consciousness sooner or later. And as we experience it, we become enraptured. We know that this is the truth of who we are. And we are grateful for this loving consciousness to roam freely in our minds and hearts, seeking all these disaffected parts of ourselves, all the fragments, all the traumas, bring them together in an aura of self-love. Think about the things that people said to you when they were unkind. Think about whether those unkind thoughts may have affected how you see yourself. Have you been unfair with yourself? Have you judged yourself? Have you ever felt that you were not tall enough, not smart enough, not beautiful enough, not thin enough, not young enough? Did you feel that you were unimportant? Did you feel that you were not worthy of love? Did you feel that you were too broken to be a good person? Did you feel that all the nasty things people said about you were true? Did you believe your parents when they tried to fill your mind with poison? Your brothers or sisters, your teachers, your friends, your bosses, your co-workers? Did you believe them when they tried to fill your mind with poison about yourself? To tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not strong enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not young enough, or bright enough, or beautiful enough? I invite you right now to just lovingly say no. To lovingly respect yourself for who you really are. A being of infinite worth, infinite potential. A being who produces love for yourself and for others. I want you to imagine that you're looking at yourself in the mirror. As you keep breathing very deeply, staying very deeply involved in your peace and your breathing, and being ever more relaxed in this universal awareness of such deep, profound love. I want you to see yourself in the mirror, and I want you to just let that person be loved. Tell yourself, I love you, if you want to. Let the healing occur, because loving yourself is truly the main objective of all spiritual teachings, whether they realize it or not. It is simply to learn to love yourself, to let go of the criticism, the judgment, the hatred, the anxiety, the fear, the lack of trust, and just allow this melting influence of love to melt away all those pains, whether you created them for yourself by your own fears and suspicions, or whether you drank the chalice of poison that others handed you. Now is your chance to claim back your right to exist, to be loved, to be perfect and pure and whole. And you can set those others free. You can cut the cords of feeling anger towards them, feeling judged by them. Just cut those cords and let them free. You no longer need to be involved in being so emotionally invested in what they may have said when they were shaking with rage, or screaming, or crying, or yelling, or just giving you horrible silent treatments, or very measured tones of disrespect. Whatever it was, I ask that you just set that free. Just cut that cord and let it go. And respect them for a being who may be confused but is awakening at their own speed. And if you're awakening faster, that's quite all right. You deserve love. You deserve peace. You deserve happiness, because that is what your true essence is. And once you see that, all things are possible to you. All roads are available, and all roads lead back to oneness. You can take this life and you can transform it into something of beauty, something of grace, something of majesty, something of everlasting significance. You have the power right now to completely transform yourself and the reality that you see, because you have the full creative potential of the universe right now within yourself. I ask once again that you surround with light and love all those in the military from different countries who appear to be fighting for your freedom, for our freedom right now. Surround them with light and love as they prepare to do the most important missions of their lives. Let's ask that these missions go as successfully as possible with a minimum loss of life. that the plan works smoothly and effectively. And also please send your love and your light to all those who are working in the critical infrastructure, whether it's shipping or groceries or keeping the banks running or keeping the supply lines running, making sure that the masks and the ventilators are created, making sure that everyone gets the care they need, the supplies they need, the help they need. Send them your love. Send them your support. We ask that you surround with love and light all those who may have this coronavirus, who may have difficulty breathing, who may be experiencing terrifying flu symptoms. Let's ask that they are surrounded with light and love, that they pull through this with flying colors, that their immune system recovers, that they go back to balance, their temperature comes down, their lungs start to be able to breathe more easily, that they pull through this and it does not lead to a loss of life. Surround your friends and your family, those you love the most, with healing light. Don't be afraid to reach out to them as they may be wandering in darkness, afraid for what this thing is, terrified about what the world has suddenly become. You can give them voices of support and guidance and strength in these difficult times. And last but not least, I ask that you surround yourself with love. Embrace yourself. Embrace the perfection that you are. Let yourself feel it and live it. And know that you are a being of infinite worth and infinite value. All right, as we're deep in trance, staying here, I'll walk over to my wife, stay deeply meditative.
And just add the...
You can say it right in the microphone.
You can just imagine the light of the divine pouring over the planet and blessing each being on the planet, all the people and the animals, the children, and the elements of the earth, bathing the earth in beautiful, divine, angelic light. And just seeing this world as beautiful and perfect, and that divine natural essence that we have seen before and that many of us know, seeing the world as perfect, and taking this combined consciousness that we all have, 26,000 people, and using our co-creative abilities as we have been blessed with. Just taking a moment to see yourself as perfect, the world as perfect. Imagine every being being blessed with protection and peace and health and abundance, all good things to all beings.
Yeah, we can also ask that Daniel Brinkley, that his blood pressure go up, that the tissues in his heart start to heal, that he have more years with us on the planet.
We'd like to see our dear friend Daniel Brinkley as perfect, just envisioning him as perfectly healthy, happy, full of radiant life and light. Perfect, 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 abundant, happy, and perfect. Sending the healing light of the divine, seeing him as perfect.
And also we ask that all those in the Alliance, from the highest levels of the command all the way down through the foot soldiers, again, everyone, we ask that they be guided and supported to make the best decisions possible, to get this plan accomplished, to get to that point where we are free.
That this is the time for the light to infuse this planet, for the light to be anchored in on this planet. We bless and all the people that have devoted themselves to this and are devoted to this, that are risking much, and we ask that they be protected by the light of the divine, protected by the angels and the earth and all the beings, as we make a stand, a sacred stand, for the reclamation of all that is sacred on this earth. United in one mind, the mind of wishing goodness for this planet and for all beings.
And so it is. All right, we're going to start coming back to the room now. How about that, huh? How about that? It's a nice, relaxing journey into the depths of the soul and who we really are as people. And Elizabeth, you can come over here if you want. You know, we'll sign it off as a nice couple. So, again, let's go to the close, yeah. So, again, I want to thank everybody who was watching today. I guess we had, what was it, 26,000?
28 at the peak.
28 at the peak, wow. Thank you. This is a really unique opportunity. I don't think that it's enough just to meditate once in a while like this. I really recommend that you cultivate mindfulness, cultivate peace in your life, peace with your family while you're there. This is something you can do all the time. That's part of what we're here for, is to learn how to convert this into an ongoing meditation, not just little bursts here and there. But that's the best way to help the planet, is to stay in that state of peace. And we are going to have this class, Great Awakening, coming up. Elizabeth and I are both going to be involved in it. It's a great opportunity for everybody, and we're going to be starting it very soon. So if you're home and you're bored and you want to have something very enlightening, this is a great way to help us save the planet and help yourself become more educated on how to save the planet as well. We're going to have a lot of great stuff. Anyway, I'm David Wilcock. This is my wife, Elizabeth. Did you have any closing words for us?
Just we're sending all good wishes to you and your family.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you on the next show. All right.